fought the technology and won. Take that, internet. Okay, so for those of you who were not on our previous stream, we are underway from Battleship, New Jersey. We have just recently left our pier in Paulsboro. So we are currently standing on top of turret number 3, and we are going bow first. So you can now see our stern, which is going to be most of our view for the day. We are going to go stern first into the dry dock, though we're going bow first on the cruise. So we're going to try and move around a little bit. This part of the ship, unfortunately, does not have an outlet that works. So we're on mobile now. So this is going to be a little bit different than our previous stream. However, the last one we did this morning fought us even more. So thank you for hopping over, those of you who managed to do that. As a recap, what our project is, today we are going about a mile, give or take, to our dry dock from Paulsboro. Paulsboro is what you see on the left. That's going to be Philadelphia there on the right. We are conveniently located right next to the airport. So we're going to head to dry dock number 3. We're scheduled to cross the Sill around 2 o'clock. We were in there this morning. You can check out the pictures on Battleship New Jersey's Facebook page. It's probably also on our Instagram, our Twitter, and other places. You can see the pictures of what it looked like when it was dry, when it had a little bit of water in it, and now it is fully submerged, ready, waiting for us. And we should be back in that dry dock soon enough. This will be our 4th time in that dry dock. We were not built there. She was built in the slipways directly next to that dry dock. But we were completed in that dry dock. They added our screws and our rudders there. And then we were brought back there in late 1943 for just a little bit of extra repair work after our first sea trials, do some fixing of some things they discovered needed to be repaired during sea trials. And then she went back there in 1968 as she got ready for Vietnam. So this will be our 4th trip in there. It's pretty rare for Iowa-class battleships these days to get dry docked. It's pretty rare for battleships at all to get dry docked. So we are very much looking forward to it, and we are excited to have you guys all here. Those of you chiming in on where you're from, we appreciate that. Tell us where you're coming from. And we've got a few people tuning in for our stream. Hey, we even got somebody on one of the tugboats. I'm not sure which tugboat you're on, but that's awesome. Glad that our tugboats are tuning in. We are going to do a repaint of the bottom. We're only planning on repainting the water line. We're not going to be painting above that this time around. We can do that back at our pier. And I am going to let Ryan Zmansky take it away from it.
So what you guys are seeing happening right now, the ship is being pulled from the pier, basically broadside out into the channel. Not very hydrodynamically efficient. However, the channel basically has a smaller channel that goes straight from it to that berth. So we're being pulled out sideways. Our bow is already pointing the right direction towards the Navy Yard. Those of you who watched our previous stream saw that when we came here, they rotated the ship in the middle of the channel 180 degrees before they pushed her in side on to the pier. So they are pulling us out side on. Once we get into the channel, the tugs are going to reposition slightly and they're going to start pushing us bow on towards the dry dock. I think we've mentioned it already, but we are going into the dry dock stern first, excuse me. So we're going to make a left-hand turn here past the airport into the Navy Yard. They're going to rotate us around outside of the dry dock, and then we're going to hang there for a minute and wait for the tides to be right. We're expecting that to happen sometime early afternoon. Nothing ever happens on time, but I'm just going to throw out 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when we're shooting to do that. So once the tide is right, we'll go into the dry dock stern first. We've mentioned it before, but we're doing that specifically because we know that our shore power hookups on the starboard side are functioning. That's what we use at the pier. Iowa-class battleships do have hookups on both port and starboard side. Our port side ones haven't been used since sometime in the late 80s, early 90s. So we decided it's just easier to use the ones we know work as opposed to trying to figure out the ones on the opposite side. So that's why we're going in stern first. Of the 4 times New Jersey has been in this dry dock or will be in this dry dock, this is the only time that we're going in stern first. Normally, the ships go in bow first because there's a little bit of a pit towards the river side of the dry dock where the caisson is, and that is how that is deep enough for the rudders to be dropped out of the back of the ship if you have to do work on them. Drop them out of their the brackets that are holding them, repack them, and jack them back up. Now that is not part of the scope of work for this dry docking, so there's no need. It doesn't matter whether we go in bow first or stern first. So you'll have no issues recognizing this historic 2024 dry docking in photographs, even decades down the line, compared to earlier historic photographs, because you'll be able to see what direction the ship is positioned in the dry dock, and that'll be the dead giveaway. We are still sliding out towards the channel. You can see this tugboat, the Reed McAllister, on our port side near the stern, really pulling us out there. Our 4 tugboats combined have a horsepower of about 24,000, which is roughly what it takes to move this ship at 15 knots if it was our own propulsion plant. However, they're going to move us at about 3.5 knots today. To achieve our top speed, which is supposed to be 33 knots, we actually attained 35.2 knots. To attain that speed, we would need 212,000 horsepower, which is roughly 38 tugboats. So
that'd be a sight.
That would be a sight. Not one that you're going to get today, though.
Seen someone from Albany, USS Slater.
Ah, good to see the Slater guys on board. If anybody doesn't know, there are roughly 100 museum ships in the United States alone, and plenty more elsewhere around the world. If you would like to find your closest museum ship, I recommend hnsa.org, that's the Historic Naval Ships Association, or museumships.us. They both have great maps to find your local museum ship, and trust me, they probably need you as a volunteer. They also need your support. For those of you in our area, we'd love to come visit you too. That's true. We will use tugboats for speed instead of curators. You know, we don't have curator speed, but we do have tugboat speed. We should use that all the time. Yes.
Oh, didn't we calculate what curator power is versus horsepower?
That's true. I think
What did we calculate that out to?
like a half a horsepower.
No, it was lower than that, it turns out.
Is it a tenth of that?
A tenth of a horsepower is a curator power? That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if any of you can see in the lower part of the view, but you can see all the screws that are holding in the roof plates for the turret. Yeah, those are in there because if they want to replace the guns or do any kind of maintenance, the sides of the turret and the face of the turret, etc., are all significantly more heavily armored. But this is also armor plate, but you don't want to dismantle the entire turret. So when you see ships having really heavy refits or having a gun replaced for whatever reason, they'll just unscrew the roof plates, lift off the roof plates, and then you can access everything inside without having to dismantle a rather carefully balanced and constructed turret, which is quite useful as an overall feature, although you do have to be a little bit careful with periscopes and stuff that are poking up around our feet as well. But yeah, if anyone happens to have a gigantic, 18-foot long flathead screwdriver, we will take a turret plate off for you.
Yeah, for those of you who aren't clear, we brought track with us. Because if you're going to do it, why not?
Yeah, right. Well, we're near the back of the turret, but we've got a tugboat right, well, it looks like one right alongside. There it is, and then we've got the Reed McAllister there pulling us back at the stern. We had quite a flotilla earlier. They mostly seem to have dispersed. I don't know where they've all gone. There's just a couple of little, looks like river patrol guys over there with the flashing lights.
Yeah, they've set up a barrier around us to try and keep too many boats from getting too close to us. And with the weather the way it is today, I think most people decided to join us for our last cruise, which was breezy, but at least a little bit warmer and at least sunnier.
We're directly opposite the airport, so there are ongoing air operations. If you ever wondered where all your parcels that you ship via UPS go, it seems like half the UPS air fleet is here. I never thought I'd see a 747 in UPS colours, but there you go. Coming over, when I flew in yesterday, it was actually theoretically much easier to spot the ship because all this cloud wasn't here, but oh well. It's good camouflage. The river's actually not moving very quickly at the moment. There's a lot of driftwood for some inexplicable reason, but it's also not moving at any great rate, so we're okay on that.
We've had a question from the audience here. They want to know how this feels for you.
Well, this is the first time I've been on, this is the first time I've been on a museum ship underway. And of course it's a Battleship New Jersey, so what better ship is there to get underway on? And I think this is going to be really exciting on several grounds. I mean, for the first thing, obviously, we are moving. That doesn't happen very often, probably not going to happen again for a rather long time. But also once we go into the dry dock, of course, we will be able to do a dry dock from a dry dock while the ship is in dry dock. So it's a dry dockception.
For those of you asking, it is tugboats who are doing all the work. Our propellers, our rudders aren't doing any work today. It's all the tugs. We do love our tugs. We got McAllister tugs out here doing all the work. We have a river pilot on board as well. We might even get the chance to meet them later. Depends if we make it to that side of the ship. As a reminder, we are hoping to make it somewhere near the sail around 2 o'clock. We will not be anywhere near the Olympia today or the United States, so unfortunately we can't show them to you today. However, we saw them on our last cruise. You might see them if you go back and rewatch the last live stream from last Thursday. Unfortunately, they're just a little far upriver from us, a little bit closer to where we came from. Yep, our shafts and our rudders are both locked, and we've got 4 tugs.
You will get to see Kennedy.
Oh, but we will get to see Kennedy today. That's right. Kennedy's going to come real close to us. Want to tell us about Kennedy?
So Kennedy is, aircraft carrier John F. Kennedy is sitting over at the Philadelphia Navy Yard. She is not in the reserve basin. She is out on the river. She's too big to go into Sin. So we are going to sail past her. Her stern is sticking out of the end of the pier. Actually, that's the same pier that used to have the big hammerhead crane that when New Jersey was completed, she was pulled up alongside that pier and the turrets were lowered on board from there. But now Kennedy is sitting there for a little bit longer. We're expecting her to be towed to Brownsville pretty much as soon as Kitty Hawk is finished breaking up. She has already been sold for scrap. It's just a matter of time until they have the space to accommodate her down there. She was opened up back in September 2018 for museum ships to come and take parts off of. And so myself and a group of folks from Battleship New Jersey, I had just started working there about a year earlier, got to go on board and take a bunch of parts. So if you're on board New Jersey, you will see some parts of Kennedy preserved, including our big eye binoculars on the portside flag bridge, which me and some volunteers carried off of her, like the O13 level. And then we helped stuff each other's hernias back in our guts at the end of that evolution. Those things are a lot heavier than they look. We're still being pulled sideways out towards the channel, although we're getting closer to the green channel markers.
We have had some people comment about things you can buy in our ship store. If you're a plank owner or not, you can still get a piece of our wooden deck. That was our last big capital project. We've replaced about 43,000 square feet of it over the course of the last 5 years or so. We visit Olympia and Bakuna all the time. They're literally within eyesight of our day-to-day jobs. We work with our friends over there a lot. We will no doubt visit them at some point this year. Getting on United States is a little tougher. I am not so optimistic we'll make it on United States this year. They want to know, what's your favorite battleship and why is it New Jersey?
Well, considering I'm currently literally in the middle of the river with Ryan and Libby, if I say anything other than New Jersey, well, one, I'd be lying. I've been in the river since I like life, and I don't really trust this life jacket. No, I mean, seriously, one thing I will say generally is that obviously having grown up in the UK and seeing the UK's museum ships, coming over to the US quite a few times over the past few years. Pretty much all the museum ships I've visited have impressed me in different ways because they all manage to tell the story of their ships in a different manner. And so the first time I came over here, I was a little bit worried in that, I hadn't seen any battleships, and then I was going to see New Jersey, Iowa, and Wisconsin in the space of a couple of weeks, and I was thinking, am I going to get to the end of that and go, oh, it's just another Iowa class? And the same thing with how many Fletchers and Gatos are there floating around? Heck, there's even a decent portion of the Essex production one. But every ship, as I said, it has its own way of telling its story, its own way of displaying its history, and that actually has kept everything fresh. However, for those of you who have kept up with my videos from New Jersey over the last few years, you'll know that for this ship we've gone to the highest point possible, which I'm sure took about 5 years of my lifespan. We've been to the lowest point possible, which is actually outside of the main hull. We've been inside the torpedo defense voids outside of the main armor belt, where there was a Gregorian chant off, and pretty much anywhere else you could imagine. I think the last time I was aboard New Jersey in February, we were actually trying to decide where haven't we been at this point. It isn't just a different compartment. So, yeah, apart from obviously the fantastic director and team who actually let me back aboard and interview, they haven't barred me yet. The fact that I've been pretty much almost anywhere I could possibly want to be on a battleship makes New Jersey stand out. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. What else have we got going on?
Everyone wants to talk about other museum ships that you might love.
Does New Jersey beat Vanguard in terms of sexiness? Yes, actually, I will say, I will admit flat out, as much as I extol Vanguard's qualities as a technical and engineering achievement, I am not the world's biggest fan of Vanguard's looks. Now, I know Ryan has explained to me repeatedly it's part of the ship's history, we can't get rid of it, but if they could just get rid of that blasted HF Christmas tree on the bow, it would restore New Jersey's line so much. But aesthetically speaking, the Iowa class are pretty good looking ships, and for me personally, Vanguard is far too busy amidships. The tower superstructure up front is a little big, but I can live with it. But yeah, there's just all this mess of stuff amidships where they piled on extra superstructure instead of having aircraft handling facilities and so forth, and it just looks a little bit too much in my personal view anyway.
We've had a lot of people ask if we could blow the horn. We could, but that is all the way up on the bow, which is very far from where we are now. So we'd probably have to turn the live stream off to do the horn. So we will not be doing the horn at this time. Would be cool though. Should Vanguard have been saved?
It'd be nice. I mean, if you want to go completely ideal condition, stick Dreadnought, Warspite, and Vanguard, beginning, middle, and end of Battleship development, at least in the UK. But we can dream. I think poor old Vanguard, if she'd lasted another 5 or 6 years, they might have made a bit more of an effort to save her. But she was a little bit too young at that point. What's the tug's name? This tug here is the Reed McAllister that you can see valiantly towing our stern, although we appear to have been on quite a bit of an angle. Sure, so we're now kind of pointing about 30 degrees across the river.
If you're trying to find us, we're on the Delaware River, kind of near the Philadelphia airport. You will probably see on the maps that there's just a convergence of tugboats all in one location. That's us.
We're directly opposite at least one of the air traffic control towers for the airport at the moment. The tug's realigning itself, so we may be about to start heading forward more than anything else.
We are in a couple of movies. We make a brief appearance in Kindergarten Cop, brief appearance in Officer and a Gentleman. Born Remembrance we're in. We get a shout out in Hunt for Red October, though we don't make an appearance in the movie, if I recall, just in the book. I can't remember remember. We don't get to share, but
We also show up in the book Red Storm Rising.
ooh, Red Storm Rising. That's true.
Yes.
So
You're wiping out Soviet artillery positions on Iceland.
Yeah, really giving it to Iceland in that one.
That's actually one of the hilarious bits. It's one of the first fictional naval books I read, and they were they were talking about the fact that the ship was essentially still just using its Mark I fire control computer, because why not? It solved the artillery calculations. There's no need to try and improve things with radar. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong, but I remember correctly in the book they were referring to the fact that using optical rangefinders meant that without using the radar, it gave them less warning. The Soviet artillery had radar warning receivers or something, but I could just be misremembering that, because that whole battle for Iceland was a whole thing.
so we've just gotten a question that when active ships go to dry dock, do they use a tugboat? And I know you've got a great story.
Yes, so those of you who were tuned into the previous portrait version live stream, when we told this already, but back in the Second World War, obviously the various Iowa class that were in service would pop into a floating dry dock, Espiritu Santo or all sorts of other places, and Iowa went in for one of its dry dockings, except the captain decided that he was the single best navigator known to mankind, and therefore he was going to take the ship in at speed, on his own, no tugs, no pilots, etc. And so he entered the dry dock at speed. Obviously they flooded it down. He put the machinery into reverse, and to his credit he did manage to stop where he was supposed to stop, except that in so doing, between the wash of the ship and the backwash of the props, he managed to scatter all of the blocks he was supposed to be resting on like a bunch of dice, which meant he wasn't going to be going into that dry dock anytime soon. So they had to then move the ship out at a more sedate pace, unflood the floating dry dock, reorganise all the blocks, and then repeat the process a bit more sensibly, which is why you use tugs. Because the thing is, you've got to remember, if you're going into an enclosed environment like a dry dock, especially a land-based one, the floating ones have open ends at both ends usually, the ship displaces, at least on paper, 45,000 ton standard when she's launched. By the time you're in active service, you've got full board, munition, supplies, crew, you're going to be displacing even more than that. And if you end up moving that at any kind of speed, then that is going to be 55,000 tons of water that is being pushed out the way of the ship. And if you go into a dry dock at speed, well, that water's going to go somewhere. And best case scenario, you're going to cause a miniature version of Noah's flood all over the local shipyard, who aren't going to be best pleased with you, because cranes being swept away, dogs and cats living together, that kind of stuff. And worst case scenario, you send such a powerful wash into the dry dock, you collapse the walls of the dry dock, and then you're stuck. When you can have river banks eroded by barges coming past regularly, doing 5 or 6 knots instead of 3 or 4 knots, you don't want to imagine what a full-size battleship doing 10 or 15 knots could possibly do.
The internet requests you to speak up a little louder.
Okay, I will try and speak up a little louder. I am now addressing the microphone directly.
For those of you asking, the tugboats should not do any real damage to the ship. We don't have any soft points on our hull, so we're not really worried about the tugs. Yeah, they might scratch the paint a little bit, but they've got fenders, they're designed for that, so we're not worried about that at all. All told, so far we've managed to keep the tugboats and the ship in safe state. And yep, Reed McAllister is what you should be looking for if you're going to follow us on the marine tracking things.
Someone's saying, what's the draft at the moment? I think I heard the Marine Surveyor saying something about 30 to 31 feet.
What was the question?
What's our draft?
At the moment.
Right now we're drawing about 29 feet at the bow and about 32 feet at the stern. It's about 29 and a half feet at the bow. So roughly 30 feet amidships, and that's going to be plenty for getting over the sill. You may have started to notice on the live stream that we have gained forward momentum. They're no longer pushing us sideways into the channel. They are now pushing us towards the Navy Yard.
You can see the tugboat we've got here just attached to our port side is actually now motoring. So how much further. Well, unfortunately our view is obstructed, but if you were out on the port side deck, you would notice that there's actually a really big grey ship sitting on the port side of the river channel, it's relative to us, and okay, so we're going out onto the rangefinder.
It's all right.
So we're all now standing out on the starboard side of the rangefinder for turret 3,
which is a 3-inch cast B armor plate.
so that'll support our weight.
But still terrifying enough. I'm going to step back, guys.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't think you can quite see because of the angle we're at the moment. We're still heading out into the channel at probably about 20-25 degree angle at this point. So, but there is a rather large grey, well, it looks like some kind of transport ship that is parked literally right next to the Drydock.
Oh yeah, Gilliland. She's a military sealift command vessel that's going into the Drydock after we're finished.
So yeah, we're going to be slotting past her. Eric Hutton says, what's your favourite battle cruiser? Renown refit.
I'm a big fan of the look of Tiger. She's probably the most beautiful battle cruiser in my opinion. Not necessarily the best performing, especially early on in her career, but good looking boat.
Yeah, she's nicely designed, I think. I generally prefer the slightly larger forward superstructures you tend to get with refits and World War II era vessels. Sometimes, especially when you're used to that and you see a World War I era dreadnought, the superstructure can be so tiny you wonder where it is.
Yeah.
The Gangut's are quite bad for that. The original QEs as launched are actually quite bad for that as well, relative to later. Someone saying, for Ryan, what's been the most stressful part of this so far?
Oh, every day there's a new stressor for us. First was we sounded the depth of the channel. We knew that we were going to be able to get out of our berth, but what if something happened when we were caught on the mud? If a wind blew the river out south and we dropped a couple of feet. Then when we tied the ship up, what if, as we're ballasting, stuff starts to leak out into the people part of the ship? Now it is, what if we can't make it over the sill? And again, the sill has clearance of like 35 feet. We're drawing a max of 32 feet. So it's completely irrational fears. But until we hit each milestone, I don't sleep at night.
Going to the stern would be a little bit difficult because from where we are at the moment, that would involve either going back onto the superstructure and down a couple of levels, or climbing down the faceplate of the turret. There are some ladders there, but I don't think the camera would survive. We are being towed. I don't know if we are technically being towed. I mean, this thing is attached to us. We're technically being pushed. Can't see the bow, so I don't know if anyone's run a line off of that and is actually tugging us.
No, the Beverly here on our hip is providing most of the power.
Reed McAllister, swing around. Reed McAllister at the back there is just kind of bumping us around a little bit to keep us on course, but she is attached, as you can see, by a rope. We got our 40mm Bofors, which I was strongly tempted to try manning earlier because we had a news helicopter buzzing us and annoying the heck out of everybody.
Believe it or not, our phalanx is so it might be able to target the individual blades of a helicopter. Otherwise, you might have to get it under manual control. This is Block 0 phalanxes like New Jersey has in 1982, which she's still equipped with. I'm not sure if modern phalanxes are better. Obviously, USS Kearney was able to use hers to down some stuff, some drones in the Red Sea, so obviously they've managed to work on that somewhat. But the Battleship, the 40mm would be the way to go to drive them off.
So the police and Coast Guard boats in company. Well, we've got police boats all around us. You can probably actually see the little white boat just to the That's a Philadelphia police boat. Grey one at the back is. I haven't seen Coast Guard though.
All the way to their stern is
There's a tiny little one, all the way at the back.
Oh. Do we want to reposition
Yep.
the camera this time?
Let's go over here, everybody.
I'd stay on the turret.
Yeah. Okay. And got that's pen number 81, whatever that is, some kind of barge.
They're passing us going the opposite direction down the river. They're heading out towards the Atlantic Ocean while we're heading up the river towards the shipyard.
And back over there, that's where we came from. So we've got whatever that, I can't quite make out the name, that the black hull tanker, and then you've got the brown hulled cargo vessel, and we were sitting right between the two of them. You can actually see our wake, such as it is. And we're actually making quite a quick turn, at least for our speed of advance, to straighten up in the channel. And it looks like there's an MSC cargo ship coming up. So that may be passing us on our starboard side at some point. Well, in fact, it will be. That's coming up a lot faster than we're moving.
I spoke to the pilots earlier. We expect to have a little bit of traffic here on the river this morning, which is part of the reason why we left as early as we did. So the intention is we're going to get close, and then we're going to tuck out of their way so that way everyone can get past us and we can maneuver without having to deal with traffic. So should be simple.
We're just passing the end of the airport at the moment. On our port side, on the Philadelphia side. Pennsylvania is the state, Philadelphia is the city.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
For those of you following along on the Marine Tracker, or if you want to follow along on a Marine Tracker, we are vaguely near the airport. While the ship itself doesn't have its own transponder, you will find our tugboats do. Look for the cluster of tugboats. That's us. Can't miss us.
Someone's saying, are the ABLs on New Jersey recreations or originals?
They're original. They're actually on loan from the Navy. We have no missiles in them, but the box launchers themselves, the ABLs, are real. However, they're not ours. They're designed to be taken off and put back on, and take off and put on and refill with missiles. They're not necessarily ours. But,
If they really, really need them, they might have them back.
well, we
although
can find a way to send you back home.
I mean, I do love the fact the instruction plating on the side of those box launchers says that if there's a fuel leak, the first thing you do is inform the nearest ranking officer and then evacuate. It's like, excuse me, sir, I'm quietly dissolving under rocket fuel, but I just thought I should let you know I'm dissolving under rocket fuel. Get permission to go below and dissolve quietly in my cabin.
As a recap, we're expecting to cross the Sill somewhere around 2 o'clock. I expect this to be in a couple of streams throughout the day. We have a fairly short cruise and then some hurry up and wait time. So we're going to do our best to show you everything worth doing.
While also breaking for lunch.
Ooh, lunch!
Yeah, someone very kindly brought several dozen donuts aboard earlier. So we have sugar in our bloodstream, or depending on who you are, maybe you have a little bit of blood in your sugar stream.
No, that helicopter's not flyable. That is a Sea Sprite given to us. Also, that one's on loan from Pensacola, but it used to be a New Jersey National Guard helicopter, so she's just on loan to us. She doesn't fly, but she's been sitting there for a while. She's a Sea Sprite from the 80s. She is similar to the same type of helicopter that we would have had when we went to Lebanon, that the crew nicknamed Sea Snake, which is a great name for a helicopter.
We're now being ominously followed by that cargo ship, but I think they should understand our hull plating and the armor box over the steering compartment is significantly thicker than their bow plating, so if worse comes to worse, we will win.
as a quick recap, the ship will be in dry dock for 60 days. It's mostly just a shave and a haircut. We're going to repaint the bottom of the ship, inspect all the through-hull openings, and make sure that our cathodic protection is going to take care of the ship for a long time. We don't expect to do this again for 30 years. We are not really doing any interior work or anything above the waterline. It's just all in the hull. Our engineering plant doesn't work. We're not doing any maintenance on it. They're not reactivating the ship, contrary to what you see in blogs all over the internet. They are just going to repaint the bottom and do some basic work. We will show you every step of the way. Don't you worry.
And if you're, for those of you saying Pensacola Naval Air Museum is great, yes, it definitely is. I was there last month. They've got all sorts of weird and wonderful one-offs as well as the standard stuff. They've got the NC-4, one of the flying boats that they used for a transatlantic flight attempt. Called NC-4 because there were 4 of them. The other 3 didn't make it. We have a visitor. Who's this visitor in the black hole?
Ryan, you want to tell us a little bit about the ship?
No.
The ship itself was completed in 1943, and she was built at the Philadelphia Navy Yards. This is a real homecoming for us. One of the cool things that I'm most excited about with this trip is we have a photo of the ship in this dry dock in 1968 of a crane messing with the anchor up forward or whatever, and there's this banner hanging off the bow. It says USS New Jersey, built at PNSY. 1943, I guess. It says on it, it's got some stars. It's a fairly simple banner. We don't have the original banner, but we made ourselves a new one. So we're going to hang that off the ship just like they did. And it's actually going to show up on the challenge coins for the dry dock project. All of our dry dock merchandise, including our challenge coins, the deck pieces, everything, it all goes back into supporting the ship. This is a $10 million project, and we appreciate every dollar you guys have sent us. It really makes a difference.
Someone was saying, what is each of our favourite places on the ship?
Ooh.
Yeah, the place that I was most excited to go when I visited New Jersey, got the behind-the-scenes tour from my predecessor, was all the way to the top of the superstructure. Because I've been touring museum ships my whole life, and I had never gotten the chance to go up there and see that space. And I never thought I would be able to. So on a whim, I asked my predecessor, Jason, like, hey, any way we can do that? He's like, sure. Are you comfortable with a vertical ladder? It's like, man, I'm comfortable with hauling myself up on a rope if that's what it takes. I just want to get up there.
My favorite is, I really love our combat engagement center. It's where the missiles are fired from and all that. For one, it's a cool space in the first place, but our volunteers have done amazing work restoring it so that way everything lights up and you can push the buttons and things like that. And this year we added the nuclear launch keys. We found them in a box, and now you can see the nuclear launch keys, which is where else can you do that? Wisconsin has theirs. Do they display them?
Not as far as I know.
Yeah. What about you?
I think my favourite space is probably the voids outside the armour.
That's where we keep you when you're not on our stream.
Yeah, if you hear rattling and ominous chanting, that's going to be me. I mean, it's really cool on the one hand to see the outer plates, the outer faces of the armour plate. It's it's the only place you can see that. But also the echoes make for absolutely great acoustics. And you do get occasional fun things like spotting where they've taken off the original ladders and where someone genius in the 80s has replaced a solid steel ladder with some wire contraption that would be suicide to try and climb. And then when we've been filming down there for 15-20 minutes, Libby wonders if we've died of CO2 poisoning and has to yell down to see if we're still there.
And when are you going to bring your heavy metal band Drakenifella and the Dreadnoughts on board?
Well, if I had any musical talent whatsoever. That's the other reason why I like being in the void spaces. It's the one place where my singing actually sounds halfway decent because of all the echoes.
Yeah, keep believing that.
Yeah. The MSC Alina's coming up on our port side at the moment.
For those of you who have asked, we are currently on top of turret 3, which seems as good a viewing location as anywhere else, and it means that we're conveniently out of the way of all the line handlers connected to the tugs and when we get into the dry dock. There's also a tiny little bit of cover here if it starts to rain.
She looks like she's riding a bit light. Those containers must be empty.
The horn does still work. We blew it on our way down to Paulsboro several times. Watch the live stream and you can hear that. Unfortunately, we're not doing the horn right now because the controls for the horn are like 400 feet forward of us on a totally different level. So just not location friendly. Yeah, that made sense. Yeah, you can see the crane there that sits on top of the gun turret. Easy for moving stuff around like ammunition. It does fold.
And we haven't got the long strings of flags up that were present for when the ship came down here earlier because, well, wind and weather basically.
This is also a much shorter cruise. We're traveling like a mile this time. And then we will be going into the dry dock itself. And then once we get into the dry dock, there will be enough things happening with line handling that we don't want to have all the line handlers out on deck dealing with the flags. So just out of an abundance of caution for all of the people working and for the wind, we're a little less decorated today. But that's okay. We don't need to decorate the world's most decorated battleship, or at least the United States' most decorated battleship. So take that, Iowa. As a reminder, New Jersey has 19 battle stars, which makes her more decorated than any other battleship in the United States Navy. We're also faster than any battleship in the world right now and ever. Take that, Texas. They can enjoy their pier. And we're longer than the others too. It's only a couple inches, but it's an important couple of inches. They matter. They matter. I can't tell you our exact speed right now. Somebody looked up the speed of the ship that's passing us, said it was going 4.1. We were traveling at about 3.7 for most of the way down here. I wouldn't be surprised if we continue that, but it also looks like they're slowing down and letting this guy pass us. It'll be interesting to see when their wake hits us.
That should be happening
any moment now, if we can feel it all. Yeah.
Yeah, go. You can see the wake of the Alina there coming towards us. Reed McAllister's keeping our stern in line.
What kind of sandwich do you like?
Meat. Tugs are doing 3.9. The boxy boat is doing 10.3 apparently.
Oh wow, it's going much faster than I thought.
Apparently we're down to 3.4.
Yes, as a reminder, our rudders and screws, our propellers are not doing any work today. It's all done by these tugboats. And I gotta say, we got the best tugboats in the world. They're doing fantastic work. We haven't had any mishaps this whole trip, both on the way down here and getting to here. So she's in good shape.
So the wake of the Alina is just about to, there it goes, it's just hit the McAllister. Not any real appreciable effect. I don't think that slew is anything to do with it. I think that's just the ship, the McAllister repositioning. And no, I'm not feeling anything just yet.
I get seasick just looking at ships, and I didn't get seasick at all on the way down here. Didn't feel it.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, there's a very slight movement.
I've been on board the last 5 days while we've been ballasting, and the ship has shifted a little bit. We didn't feel it at all. We did a time lapse of it. You can watch it on this channel's videos from last night or 2 nights ago about ballasting, and you can see that the ship does move quite a bit with the tide at Paulsboro. I didn't notice. It's a very smooth ride. Our engines don't function. They don't work. That was part of decommissioning the ship, so we can't use them. We have to rely exclusively on our tugs. The Navy doesn't want us reactivating the engines. In fact, the one time we stuck a fog machine in our smokestacks to make it look like they worked, we informed every everybody that it was a fog machine to make sure nobody got any ideas. No, our challenge coins are not available for sale in our online gift shop just yet. They should be up there hopefully another week. They haven't been delivered yet, but they will go up soon. We do have all sorts of other merchandise in the online shop though. Look for that. We've got Drydock specific t-shirts, lots of teak, you name it, we've got it. The Wisconsin doesn't have working engines either. None of the battleships have working engines. Wisconsin stayed in the reserve fleet significantly longer. So there is a lot of mythology about Wisconsin and her ability to be reactivated in 30, 60, 90 days. No, she cannot, she will not, just doesn't work. We're not transmitting a transponder. We don't have a transponder on board because we're a dead ship. We have our tugs doing that for us. So you won't find us, you'll just find the tugs. That's pretty standard.
And even if we did have a transponder, it would be on the mast, which got cut down to fit under the bridge. So
also true. For those of you who've missed it in the past, we had to cut down our mast and remove our radar. They're sitting back on our pier back in Camden, waiting for us to return. We'll put them back on, but we needed them so that way we could fit under the bridge. That's the Walt Whitman Bridge that stands between us now and where we came from. It's very important to safely transit under the bridge. We didn't want to hit it, so it had to come down. The online shop can be easily found at battleshipnewjersey.org. It'll show up on the homepage, you can't miss it. You can also get tickets to join us for Drydock tours, get underneath the ship. Are you pretty excited to get underneath the ship?
Yep, yep. Been under one battleship, so a second one is going to be even more fun. Plus, also the blocks on this one are, well, I'm not going to be able to stand under it, but I won't have to crouch either. The blocks that in this Drydock are a little bit taller than the ones that Texas was setting up.
We got lucky this morning. We had the chance to go over and see them start to flood our Drydock. If you want to see pictures and video of that, head on over to our Facebook page, and you can see that we have a representative over there taking pictures today. We expect to cross the sill somewhere around 2 o'clock, which means we'll probably be doing some sitting around waiting to get in. So we'll probably do 2 separate streams, that way you can see both, and we're not just sitting around too much. But we probably won't get to show you the bottom of the ship today. They're going to start draining the water, but it probably won't be fully drained until tomorrow. But don't worry, we'll show it to you when we get there.
Yeah, they were saying it takes them about twice as long to pump the Drydock out as it does to flood. So given that it's taken them a few hours to get it full, by the time we get there, there's not going to be enough time to get it empty.
And getting into the Drydock is a lot more complicated than getting out of it. We need to make sure that we sit perfectly on our blocks. So they're going to pull us in where they're about where we're supposed to be, lower us down, and then a diver is going to make sure that we're all lined up. In most cases, you get her close, maybe raise her back up a little bit, adjust her, put her back down. It takes a couple of tries to get her positioned just right, which also means that this process is a little slow. We will be bumped, Texas was not bumped. All that means is the spots underneath the blocks are hard to paint, so they will refloat us, move us about 4 feet and drop us back down on the blocks again, and we can paint underneath the blocks. Texas did not do that. They instead moved their blocks one at a time. Their Drydock process was so much slower that it was more practical for them to move the blocks. It's more practical for us to move the ship. Ours is much more common. Looks like Battleship Alabama as a whole has tuned in, so that's great to see them here. They will not be drydocking their ship anytime soon. They're in a cofferdam. They don't need to. They have a different system. What do you guys want to talk about the cofferdam? It's all yours.
Sure.
I love the cofferdam idea that ships like North Carolina, Alabama have achieved, and it's something that we're definitely looking into. In fact, this could well be the last time that New Jersey goes into a traditional dry dock if we manage to install a cofferdam around our ship that's similar to what Alabama uses. So they essentially, to build a cofferdam, you build a frame around the ship. In fact, with both North Carolina and Alabama, I believe they were sitting in the mud already by the time they did that. But by then building a wall around the ship that you can drain the water out of, it allows you to do the hull maintenance in place of going into dry dock. And that's obviously a heck of a lot cheaper. Our dry dock process is expected to cost about $10 million. We're probably going to spend about $7 or $8 million in the yard. The rest of it is prep work to get the ship there. The tugboats, going under the bridge, getting the mast cut off, getting the ship ballasted, all this stuff that those guys don't have to worry about, and I'm so jealous about them for the work that they're able to do without that. Oh yeah, Queen Mary is, somebody mentioned in the chat, Queen Mary's in a very similar situation as well.
So we are going to slightly shift our operations here for just a little while so some of these folks can take lunch. So I'm going to hold down the fort and we'll see you guys in a few. Lower the camera. Oh, that's not a bad idea. You can also see how close we are to the airport. Look how close that plane is. We just passed by the airport not too long ago. There is no word currently on the lawsuit happening with the SS United States. They will get that worked out as soon as they can. We're figuring that one out. For those of you who don't know the SS United States, she is a passenger liner who is trying to become something, but she's not quite a museum or open to the public at this point in time. We're hoping that we'll see her visitable sometime eventually. Unfortunately, the big thing that she needs right now is probably a couple $100 million. So we are looking optimistically for her, but there's not much that we can do. The difference between Ryan tours and regular Drydock tours is very limited. The difference is you get Ryan as your tour guide. Otherwise, you're still going to see the bottom of the ship on both tours. But if you want to ask the deep dive questions with Ryan, that's the tour to sign up for. As a reminder, you can sign up to tour underneath the ship. Our Drydock tours are available on our website, battleshipnewjersey.org. Check it out. Every dollar for our Drydock tours goes right into preserving the ship, goes right back into this project. And it's a roughly $10 million project, so we need all the support that we can get. So we are particularly appreciative to all of you who've donated today. We do have transponders on the tugboats if you're following along, but they're on the tugs. So if you look for Reed McAllister, you will find us. We are that random group of tugboats moving perfectly in unison. We are somewhere between the Navy Yard and the airport, which is not a huge area. So keep looking, you'll find us. We are on the Delaware. Ryan did not bring the sandwich his mommy made for him, but I do have an excellent story about his mommy. Ryan just had his birthday last week, and his mommy called the Drydock to ask what kind of hard hat he should buy. So he got a new hard hat for his birthday, and we did all appreciate how sweet that was, and it was absolutely hilarious. If your mom has ever called your work, you might know. There will be Drydock specific items available for sale in our website. We've got t-shirts, we've got sweatshirts, we've got thermoses, we've got hats. You will get a hard hat if you take a Drydock tour. You get to keep your hard hat that says the Drydock on it. There will be challenge coins. We're making it all. So we're getting closer to the Navy Yard now. We don't have an exact expected arrival time. We'll probably be going into the still around 2 o'clock. We're keeping an eye on the tide, so that's roughly when the tides line up. So we're doing the best that we can on that one. Yes, you too can take a tour with me too. Those are called the regular Drydock tours. We do them every Saturday and Sunday, all day long. Did we just pass Fort Mifflin? I believe that is Fort Mifflin, right behind us here. You can watch everyone's heads while they eat lunch. Yep, that's Fort Mifflin. For those of you who haven't heard before, we are sitting on top of turret number 3 right now. We don't have many comments about the Key Bridge collapse. We don't really know anything about what happened. We hope that everybody is safe. We have lost some of our ballasting guys down there to go help out with that project to get everything back in order. So they're in our thoughts today. People. So there is a new U.S. USS New Jersey coming soon to a Navy near you. She is a submarine, SSN 796. She's set to be commissioned in the fall. I want to say September 6th, 14th? Early September. If you look up USS New Jersey, SSN 796 commissioning, they have a website. You can get tickets to come to the commissioning ceremony. We're pretty excited that there will be a new New Jersey. I'm particularly excited because it means that there's finally female USS New Jersey sailors. We never had any of those. We are still moving, but we're moving pretty slowly. If somebody looks it up on the transponder list, how fast we're going, feel free to throw that in the chat. We have another boat that's passing us here. We tend to slow down as we go past other ships, so we slow down. If your hard hat is not, if it's expired or anything like that, you cannot wear your hard hat on the tours. You have to wear one of the non-expired ones from us. So if your hard hat is from 1943, it's probably not going to fly. Yep, we've slowed down to about 2 knots. Which gives this ship just a 2.5 knots, allowing these ships to pass us. We follow the rule of tonnage, and I'm willing to bet they weigh more than we do. So, if your hard hat's from 1944, it probably still isn't going to be up to spec, unfortunately. Our turrets do not rotate anymore. We're really glad that Iowa managed to get theirs to rotate. We unfortunately have been spending our resources elsewhere. We're going to Drydock. That's where we spent our time. So unfortunately our turrets don't rotate. Check out their YouTube channel if you want to see what that looks like. We do not have our original propellers on the ship. They have been changed out over time. If you want to see what one looks like and you can't make it to a Drydock tour, but you can make it to Camden, we've got one already on the pier. We do plan on keeping all of our propellers on the ship. We don't plan on removing them, but you can see one landside if you would like. Yes, we do plan on fleeting the ship in Drydock. We're going to give her a bump so we can paint underneath the blocks. We just refloat it and move it. So easy to do. We will definitely live stream or videotape that whole endeavor. We'll probably actually not do it live. It's a really slow process. It's like draining your bathtub, but your bathtub is, you know, the size of a battleship. So we'll probably just do it in a time lapse so we can speed it up. The Navy does take items off of ships when they decommission them and they accession them into their collection. What's really common is the bell, the nameplate, things like that. The Navy did take things off of our ship. They have given most of those things back to us, the things that we have requested. We have something like 79 items from the Navy on board our ship now. We are keeping those items on board for this project. So they're staying right here. Does the Drydock have a rubber duck for the bathtub? So here's the thing, our gift shop sells rubber ducks called Captain Quack. I think I might need to put Captain Quack in there, you know, just to see. We are not going to move the camera up to the bridge for this endeavor. For this particular trip, we did that for the last one. It was a great view. You can watch it. It was 6 miles. It was sunny. It was gorgeous. Instead, we're back here on turret 3. The reason that we're doing that is we're going to go into the Drydock stern first. So this will be our best view of that from back here. We were hoping to do 1 live stream throughout the day. We might break it up into 2, but just in case we decided to be in the right spot to see us come into the Drydock in the best view. We are not really doing much work to our pier back home while the ship is gone. Our elevators are going to get a preventative maintenance cycle in. We'll wash it down, the whole pier. We'll probably repaint the benches. Our volunteers have some ambitious ideas of some work they want to do, but it's all pretty small stuff. We've had a lot of questions asking if we're going to dredge our berth. We cannot do that at this time. This happens to be shad spawning season, so there's a moratorium on dredging, so we unfortunately can't dredge our berth while we are gone. We are hoping to pull into the Drydock around 2 o'clock, so stay tuned. Right now, in local time, it is about 1 o'clock, so we've got about an hour to go. We've had some people asking about our crew on board. You might see some people walking around below us. We have somewhere around 30 people on board, the vast majority of them being our line handlers. They are making sure that we're tied up to the tugs and then help us once we get into the dry dock. In just a moment, you're going to see on our camera, if he'll wave at us, that's one of our folks that helped with our ballasting this week. So we're very happy to have him on board, helping with the line handling for this. We have been in Paulsboro for the last 4 or 5 days ballasting the ship. We took on roughly 500,000 gallons of water into the bow of the ship to weigh it down so that way she sits flat when we go into the dry dock. For those of you asking, the dry dock merchandise items are available in the dry dock when you come for a tour or on our website, battleshipnewjersey.org. You can also buy tickets for your tour on our website. Again, that's battleshipnewjersey.org. We will be in dry dock for roughly 60 days, and then we are headed back to Camden. We don't have an exact move date back just yet. Once we get out of the water and we confirm that we don't have some sort of excess damage that we didn't expect, we will have something closer to an exact date. But nothing quite happens on time. There's a reason why we didn't have these move dates until just a few weeks ago.
Have you mentioned dry dock tours recently? Dry dock tours?
I have mentioned dry dock tours very recently, but we'll mention them again as a reminder. We are doing dry dock tours. Come get underneath the ship, and every dollar spent on dry dock tours comes and supports the project. For the videographer asking, today we are on a cell phone. We're keeping our setup pretty minimal here. Out here on the gun turret, we don't have outlets on top of the gun turret. For whatever reason, they never installed them. So without any power, we're just moving off of a phone today, which is better than you'd expect, I think. So we're happy to be here. Yes, we do sell rust in jars in our gift shop. You can also buy paint chips in jars. You can buy little pieces of wood in jars. If you ask, we might even put water from the dry dock in a jar for you. It has been asked if we'll put ballast water in a jar for you, and that's okay. We will show you anything that we want to see. So the boat that you're seeing in the lower right-hand corner there, that is the captain's gig. So that's just one of the boats that they could use if they weren't pulled up to a pier to get people to shore. We have 6 of them. We've got 5 on board. We have a 6th one that floats. Maybe if we're really, really lucky, we'll have that boat with us for the cruise back to our pier when it's a little bit warmer. Will the submarine get any items off the battleship? Absolutely. They have already gotten some. We have been giving them teak to make everything they can think of. They have made name tags out of teak. They made a little platform for inside the ship out of teak. They made many cribbage boards out of teak. They've made lots of plaques out of our teak. They have given us things as well. So they've given us, like, they have dolphins that they specifically painted red for the Jersey Devil. They gave us a set of those in a box made out of, I think, our teak. We actually have the christening bottle in our collection as well. So they've been very supportive of us and making sure that we have their items in our collection. And we're keeping an eye on them. If they do anything cool, we try and stay involved. They sent us footage from their sea trials that we posted on our Facebook page, which is great. It's the first time that a ship named USS New Jersey has submerged and resurfaced. The original USS New Jersey, since BB-16, submerged. She was sunk and didn't come back. But that was intentional. She was sunk in tests by our arch nemesis. Airplanes. Yeah, they wanted to find out whether or not airplanes could sink battleships. It turns out they can. She's unfortunately still sitting at the bottom of the ocean, but she now becomes an excellent test bed for seeing how ships corrode underwater. So she's just still a wreck down there. Is the docks wide enough so the tugs on the side will fit? It's a pretty tight squeeze. The tugs will not be coming into the dry dock with us. They're going to push us in, and then the line handlers ashore will do some of the work as well. The dry dock supports, we call them blocks. The blocks have a concrete base, and then they have wood on top, and the wood is actually just strapped on in a way that it can be removed. So if just in case things are a little bit too, they can cut the strips, take the wood out, and then we can shim it up afterwards. So those are, and some of them even have a little bit of steel support as well, just depending where we are. I have extreme doubts that the submarine will port call ever. We are pretty far upriver, and they have a nuclear engine, and just generally that is not best practices. Now here's the good news, guys. Shipyard. As a reminder, the Philadelphia Navy Yard is a public-private partnership today. So while the Navy itself does have a presence at the shipyard, the shipyard itself is primarily a private yard. So the company... Oop, we might have lost internet connection there for just a second, but I think we're back. Philly Ship Repair is a private company. Is going to be doing our work, and then but there is a Navy presence there, which is why we will see the Kennedy on our way in. We'll be very close to her in the Drydock, and there are some other Navy ships in the reserve base in here that are sitting in mothballs awaiting their fate, whether they will be reactivated or scrapped or sold off, still to be determined for most of them. It looks like we have some guests here who are going to take over our stream for a little while.
Hello, Drac is back for your mortal city, so Libby can get some lunch. So yeah, we're coming up to the Navy Yard at the moment. Pan over a little bit, see what the questions are saying. When will the USS Sullivan's get into dry dock? No idea. Sound too low. Well, I am speaking as loud as I can into this mic. Let me ratchet the camera up a little bit. 2 seconds.
You gotta put on your loud American voice.
Come on, up we go. There we go. Now I can actually read the thing. Hopefully, okay, I'm going to speak up a bit. Hopefully that'll work a bit better. So what you can probably see coming up just on the right hand side of your screen, yeah, just emerging past the ship's superstructure, you can see a big grey stern. That is pretty much where we are going, because the dry dock entrance is just on the other side of that ship, so we're not too far away at all at this stage. Happy Canuck, as Libby explained earlier, the blocks are not going to be moved. In this case, the ship is going to be moved. So the dry dock will be partly reflooded, and then the ship will just be shuffled along to allow painting to be undertaken where the blocks will be when the ship initially goes down. Yeah, that grey ship is emerging very slowly. And for those of you who are doubting, it is indeed me. Hello. What's in the can that's just opened? I think that's a Coke or a Sprite. Could New Jersey permanently stay in a dry dock like HMS Victory? Technically yes, but it would probably go very badly. Victory was on 13 supports for a very long time, and then they did some measurements and discovered that the ship was sagging essentially through the gaps in the supports. So that's why if you visit Victory today, she's on many more numerous smaller, individually smaller supports, which actually means you can walk underneath Victory now, which is something you couldn't do until a few years ago. But ships are supposed to be in the water. There's a reason why when they launch them in the case of something like New Jersey without turrets, without a good chunk of the superstructure, etc. It's not just for stability, it's also for weight reasons. A ship is supposed to be uniformly supported by the water. If you keep it out in dry dock, then stresses and strains will build up for a few weeks, a few months. That's fine. But if you start extending that to years or decades, you'll have a similar problem to Victory of everything just beginning to shift and move and bend, and sooner or later that's going to be the end of it, because once a ship has warped enough, you then can't refloat it. Victory, technically speaking, could be made serviceable again, but it would be a lot of work. They've put ventilation holes in her hull, etc. So it's possible that you could have Victory moving along like a Constitution, but I don't think they're going to be spending that kind of money. Where is Philadelphia International in relationship with this camera view? It is currently, I will swing this round, there behind us, pretty much. So just over the peak of the gazebo bridge line there, that's the main control tower for Philadelphia International. And then you've got bridge of some description, I don't know, I'm not local to here. And then we are looking back at the shipyard. What have we got? Who's asking questions, if anybody?
Let me know when you want me to
Apparently we're doing 3.5 knots. What are all the brackets? Those are for mounting small cranes and so forth to move things around on deck. There's an intact one on the port side of the turret, starboard side of the ship, which would be used for helping to manhandle shells and charges and everything down into the ammunition hoists. The pitch of the tugs has changed and we are slowing. Not entirely sure why, but we are... What are we doing? Reed McAllister has come alongside and she's doing a lot of something. And we're shifting around. We are rotating very slightly. Ryan, can you remind us what this big grey ship is that's going in after this, after New Jersey?
Yeah, so the gray ship at the pier here, that's Pier 6. The ship itself is Gilliland. She's a military Sea Lift Command vessel, and she's going in, I think, for new propellers right after us. She was originally on the list before us, but I don't think whatever parts they needed got here in time. If you look over here at Acker's part of the shipyard, you can see two walls. To the left is Drydock number 5, to the right is Drydock number 4. USS Wisconsin went into Drydock number 4 in the 80s, I think 89 if I remember correctly. So that was an option for us. However, as you can see, Aker is building a ship there right now, so it was not available for us. To the right of those, where you see these like white Quonset huts, and then just past that, those were originally the covered slipways at the Philadelphia Navy Yard where they were building the ships. Actually, where you see this stand of trees over here, more or less on the right hand side of the screen, kind of centered up, that is where the slipways were, where Washington, New Jersey, and Wisconsin were all built. Of course, the covered parts are gone. They're now parking lots, and you can actually see the cars sort of stacked up at an angle. That is the original floor of the slipway. So when New Jersey was completed, she was launched stern first, right down that ramp, right here into the river. And at that time, she was the heaviest stern first launch in the Western Hemisphere. And she just kept right on going. They put her into the water and she kept going straight across the river all the way to New Jersey. And they say that on that first day she touched the water, that she kissed her home state. Now, I don't know too many people that kiss with their aft end, but maybe it's a New Jersey thing. And of course, just past these slipways is where Drydock number 3 is, and that's where we're going to be headed.
So we are actually being spun round at the moment, so we're probably going to be spun round, so we're going to then be backed in stern first, so we're going to go, let's pan the camera around. all of a sudden the airport's decided to have a flurry of launches, so that's a little bit loud. So all the way back there, you can just about see a bunch of flashing lights on the horizon. That's where we were. That's where we left however long ago it was, about an hour and a half ago. And we're currently coming around so that's what Reed McAllister down there is doing. She's pushing our stern around, and we've got another tug that's just standing around here, or sitting around here next to us, and you can just about see the stern of another tug there, which is going to be about, which is probably just either helping us hold position or possibly just being static. Right, we're just going to move over to the starboard side. So that is the Kennedy, the conventionally powered supercarrier that is awaiting disposal. It looks kind of like an elephant at the moment. It's kind of mottled pink and grey.
Yeah, they unfortunately painted it with a paint that degrades and turns pink over time. You can also see the Gilliland coming into view here too. She is slated to go into the dry dock after us.
And that gap between the two is where we're going.
Very careful.
So you can, I don't know if anyone can zoom in or can see on a big screen. There's a little pier that has just had a 4x4 drive behind the Gilliland. Is it Gilliland?
Gilliland.
Gilliland.
USNS.
Yeah.
So that pier is the far side of the slot that we're going into.
We are currently in rotation, so that way we can put the stern into the dry dock first. So we are rotating here, and then they'll back us up in a little bit. We have a little bit of time before the tides are just right for us to get pulled in. For our friends over at the dry dock, they have been keeping us updated throughout the day. The dry dock was fully flooded before we even left the pier today. So she is in good shape waiting for us. There is a captain on the bridge, as well as a river pilot. They're all in command today. Our captain on the bridge is Captain Joe Benton. He is in charge of all of our tugs. And the horn does work, that's correct. We're just really, really far away from it.
And what you might also be able to see in front of the Kennedy's bow, that's kind of half obscured by the Gilliland, is, I'm not entirely sure what it's called, but it's one of those weird catamaran high-speed transports the Navy had, or the US Navy still has.
Wild. Ryan just mentioned that we get a really good view. Well, you can sort of see it here, sort of near that water tower there. The parking lot is at such an extreme angle because those are the slipways that we were built on, and it's so cool to see that. We have been through here a few times, but this is really the best view of it, which means that that's our slipways, yeah?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that the ship would have slid right across the river here, and that is right where she was born.
And I'm pretty sure we're this one that's on the left, and Wisconsin was the one on the right.
As a reminder, of course, the ship was built here. That's our slipways where we were constructed. But then she was taken out. Once she was launched, she ended up pierside right around where we are now. So that way she could have some work done, like including putting her turrets on, like where we are right now. We're standing on top of turret 3.
That's the pier that Kennedy was on.
That's the pier that Kennedy's on over there. And then we were eventually put into the dry dock just a few weeks after launch. So that way we could put the propellers on, the rudders on, and some of the other details that you just can't do while the ship is, before she's been launched. They brought us back there later in 1943 after sea trials just to make a couple of adjustments. That was a pretty short time there. And then brought back again in 1968. So this is our 4th trip into this dry dock. We haven't been dry docked since 1990. So it's been 34 years. So we're a little overdue.
No drone cam because we're right next to a Navy yard. Putting a drone up at this point is a very expensive way to lose a drone.
For those of you who want drone footage, we did have some on our first trip. You can see that a little bit on the rest of our channel. Look for the ceremony footage. I think that's got some of the best drone footage.
And as you can probably hear, and in a minute probably see, we're also literally right underneath the flight path for the Philadelphia International Airport. Airliners also take a dim view of drones, although the engines do occasionally like to eat them.
If you don't like LCSs, that's okay, but we do. I still think they're pretty cool. We visited an LCS on this channel twice now, actually. So I don't know who's hating on LCSs, but don't do that. And if Commander Bob is here, we say hello to you too, because I suspect he's the one who loves LCSs so much.
We can't bring the camera up front because that's where most of the line handlers are going to be. So we'd either be on the bridge getting in the way of the people trying to manage this particular evolution, or in the way of all the line handlers, and the lines hurt.
So the good news for this particular evolution is we are about to start the process of moving backwards, which is actually why we're up here. We chose the back of the ship today so that way we could see her pull into the dry dock better. We're still waiting on an exact time of when we'll pull into the dry dock itself. We are in the right area now. We're essentially in the parking lot, if you will. We just haven't quite pulled into our parking space. We're waiting on exact tide, so even once we're lined up, we're still just going to be waiting around a little bit, I think, to make sure we pull in at the precise time we need. We don't have a ton of space, ton of water between us and the blocks. So we want to make sure we've got an ideal situation for that.
There's another one of the reserve fleet just coming into view as well. So we've got
the caisson.
Ah, that is a good view. Okay, so next to the Gilland, this big gray ship in front of us, is our caisson. So it's on the other side of the pier there. It's kind of that boxy thing. So the caisson is what sits at the end of the dry dock to keep the water out. So it is cool to see her sitting alongside, which means the caisson's been removed and they're ready to pull us in. We do have some cameras in the dry dock itself. You're not going to unfortunately get to see those until a little bit later. One, because there's nothing to see right now, and two, we're live streaming from the ship instead. Don't worry, we will do a recap video like we did of our first cruise. It'll end up on this channel soon. We don't expect to be able to show you the underside of the ship today, so we'll probably show you that when we can show you the underside of the ship. Harbor pilots, or the river pilot, and the tug captain have been moving around. They have mostly been up on the 04 and the 05 bridges, but I wouldn't be surprised if they've shifted. You might see a lot of our line handlers now coming out to the back of the ship, getting ready as we are approaching our dry dock. Looks like in just a short period of time, they're going to pivot us around so we can really get a great view of that dock.
For those of you who are interested, the Ticonderoga that's coming into view at the moment is CG-72 USS Vela Gulf.
She's been there for a while, I think, yeah?
Not more than a year or two.
Not more than a year or two? She's turning pink, which is an indicator she's been there for a little while, but not as long as Kennedy, who is quite pink.
And then there's that fast catamaran ferry transporty thing on the other side.
Yeah, HSV something, HSV-1, I think, maybe.
Somebody's asking about the helicopter. That's our helicopter. She's a Sea Sprite. She is the kind of helicopter that would have been embarked on this ship when she was in Lebanon. Very similar to the types of helicopters that would have been visiting the ship over the course of the 1980s. Crew complement for the ship. We've got about 30 people on board, with the vast majority of them being the line handlers you're seeing down below. Just to make sure that we can get us where we need to go.
I think if the US Navy was going to sell you Kennedy for $1, would you make it into the ship's yacht?
Make it what?
Would you make Kennedy into the ship's yacht if the Navy let you have it for $1?
Man, if the Navy gave me Kennedy for $1, I wouldn't have enough money to maintain her for a year.
So the reason that the Navy sells ships for $1 is because it is so expensive to scrap them. You basically break even on the material. Which is counterintuitive, it is, but trust me, scrapping ships is very expensive, which is why they do that. So Kennedy here is slated to go to Brownsville, Texas to be cut up as soon as there's a spot available for her.
And she is contaminated with lead, tin, asbestos, and PCBs that we know of so far. Probably more stuff. So that's some of the stuff that has to be remediated as part of the scrapping process.
And for those of you who are interested in the history of US supercarriers, interestingly enough, there is a design development break between USS Midway and USS Forrestal. And of course, Kennedy here is a descendant eventually of Forrestal. And you look at the displacement from a Yorktown to an Essex to a Midway to a Forrestal and so on and so forth. You might think there's a logical progression, but in actual fact, the Midways in the immediate post-war period were considered too expensive for the US Navy to build. They were looking at a 35 to 38,000 ton carrier that was kind of midway between the Essexes and the Midways, which they thought would be cheaper to build in numbers. They couldn't quite make that work, and there was the whole kerfuffle with trying to build the USS United States, which was somebody's genius idea to make a flush deck carrier carrying 24 nuclear-equipped bombers, trying to bring strategic bombing to sea. Of course, the USS United States was cancelled, but the Forrestals in many ways resemble slightly downscaled versions of the final design of the United States, with a few elements of that intermediate regular carrier added in. And so that is actually the design lineage for the modern US supercarrier.
I have a news update for you. I have just seen our tug captain here on the aft end of the 05, and while he is certainly out and about and looking where he's going, I think I see a hint of a smile there. So I'm taking that as good news that we're in good shape here today.
First view of the dry dock around the Lily Land.
First look into that dry dock, guys. We got to make a tight turn here. But here we come. You might be able to see that there are people on all of the ships around us watching. Yeah, you might be used to big ships like this one, but a battleship is still always cool to see underway. So we've got everyone that wanted to is out here today, so it's good to see them. I think I see some of the yard workers standing on the end of the pier there too.
There's some the emergency sirens or lights out there.
They've closed down the road because the capstan that's going to pull us in stern first is on the other side of the road. You can see the crane here is going to be passed through the hawser at the stern of the ship and then made off, and that is what they're going to use to haul the ship into the dry dock. As you can see, it's not wide enough for the tugboats to go in with us, so they're going to get us to the sill, and then the hawse line is going to be used in the capstan to pull us in. There are 8 lines along the sides of the ship that they're going to use, the shipyard workers, to center us over the blocks.
For those of you asking, the locomotive that showed up on the day that the ship left Camden just decided to show up.
Yeah, we don't know what the locomotive was. All I can say is, if you want to make your machine look like a toy, park it next to the battleship.
The news helicopter has shown up. It is circling. If it gets too close, we may man the 40 mils. Yes, this is a full land dry dock. This isn't a floating dry dock.
As far as we know, Battleship New Jersey has never been in a floating dry dock in her entire career. There were only a handful that were big enough for Iowa-class battleships. We know that Iowa got in one during World War II, but New Jersey was sent all the way home to Puget Sound for her wartime dry docking, and we're not aware of any instance of her going into a floating dry dock.
Well, that's definitely a lot fuller than it was when we saw it this morning. Some more reserve Tychos visible just to the right of the dry dock. Just about see their superstructures and foremasts. That's in the basin behind. Tell you what, shall we move to the front of the turret, look
Sure.
between the guns? The name of the ship portside is Charles L. Gilliland. I'm literally just reading that off of the bow. There she is.
She is a military Sea Lift Command vessel that's normally pre-positioned in Baltimore. I believe there are 5 that are normally in Baltimore. She's one of the 2 that are normally docked on Clinton Street, basically right across the pier from the John W. Brown. Our stern is coming around now. We're about to get lined up with the entrance to the dry dock, and they're probably going to hold us here for a little bit until the dock master has called us and told us that the depth is great enough that he's comfortable with us bringing the ship over the sill. High tide today is around 4 o'clock, if I remember correctly.
It's only 20 past 1.
So the tide is still rising. And then even once we get across the sill, it's going to be a while before they put the caisson back in front, because that cannot seat properly at high tide. It's too high up. So it's going to take a while for them to get that in position, wait for the tide to go down some, and then get it seated so that they can start to dewater the dry dock. The current plan, and plans certainly change as do timelines, especially in a project like that. The current plan is around 6 o'clock maybe. We'll get the caisson seated, and they'll start draining overnight, and they'll get us within maybe 4 feet of the block. So that'll be about 9 feet of water left in the dry dock. At that point, it'll already be dark. So in the morning, we'll come back in. The divers will go down and make sure that the blocks are lined up properly with the hulls, and make sure that the through-hull openings, which have box blanks over some of them, but we don't know how big those box blanks are, we'll make sure that none of them are going to be crushed by the blocks. Libby already mentioned the keel blocks are approximately 2.5, maybe 3 feet tall concrete blocks with another 2.5 or so feet of wood stacked up on top of them that are held in place by metal bands. If those are going to impact the hull, the divers can cut the metal bands and pull the wood caps off, and then it will no longer be an issue. We set the ship down without that block.
Hi, everybody.
We're back.
Slight failure, guys. We are back. Tell them something.
You can see all of our line handlers lined up here at the stern of the ship. They're mostly from North Star, which is a local marine services company here that's been supporting the Battleship during this process. Some of those guys work with Resolve to help ballast the ship, and they're going to help with the deballasting process also. So the current timeline, and keep in mind that this could change, we're going to wait for the tide to be right, more or less in this position, until about 2 o'clock. Around 2 o'clock, with enough depth, the tugs are going to push us so that our stern goes over the sill of the dry dock. They cannot fit in the dry dock with us, so this crane, which is currently supporting a blue line, is going to lower that line through the chock at the fantail, and we're going to make it off to the ship. At that point, the tugs can more or less back off, and they're going to use a capstan, which is across the road at the back of the dry dock, to start pulling the ship in. You might be able to see the blinking lights on the pier. Those are the police cars that are blocking the road so that the blue line that's going to haul us in is not obstructed by traffic.
It is, for those of you who are asking, it is currently 26 minutes past 1, so we're looking at just over half an hour till 2. I don't know why you wanted to know it was until 2, but there you go.
We are on the Eastern time zone here in Philadelphia. So once the ship is in the dry dock, we've got a number of lines. It's something like 8 lines on the ship that we're going to pass down to the dry dock workers below us, and then they are going to haul on those lines to center us up over the blocks properly. Once we're centered over the blocks, they're going to tie us in place, and they're going to start the dewatering process. Well, first they got to move the caisson in. Caisson can't come in at high tide at 4 o'clock. It'll probably be closer to 6 p.m. local time when the caisson gets put in place. So once that's back in place, then they can start draining the dry dock. They're going to drain us down until we're about 4 feet above the blocks, about 9 feet above the dry dock floor. And that should be done by about midnight tonight. They're going to leave it there. We're going to come back in the morning as soon as there's daylight, and that's when the divers are going to go down. The divers are going to swim under the ship, and they're going to make sure that the blocks are where they're supposed to be, lined up with the various hull fittings. We know that the Navy used box blanks over some of the through hull fittings, but we don't know how big those box blanks are, so they may be in the way of some of these keel blocks. We don't want them to get crushed. The keel blocks are approximately 2.5 feet tall concrete blocks with about 2.5 feet of wood stacked on top of it, held in place by a metal band. The divers can cut that metal band with tin snips and then push the wooden caps out of the way if that's going to impact any of our box blanks or any other fittings on the underside of the ship. Then we'll sit the ship down, basically not using that block, and once they've completely drained the dry dock, then we'll be able to slide more wood under there and wedge it back into place so it's supporting the weight of the ship. Once the divers are completed, hopefully around noon tomorrow, and keep in mind this entire timeline is subject to change depending on a variety of conditions, then they're going to continue draining the last 9 feet out of the dry dock. We expect that to be completed by tomorrow night, maybe by 6 p.m. tomorrow night. At that point, the inside of the dry dock is going to be covered in mud, and they're going to have to get up all the fish that got stuck in there and do a lot of cleaning work. So there's a chance that we won't even get into the dry dock until Friday morning. Now, Friday morning is Good Friday. So that is a union holiday here. And then, of course, we've got Easter Sunday, and Monday is also being the recognized Easter holiday here. So we probably will not begin major work on the ship until Tuesday. So she'll have a little bit of time to sit high and dry and settle on the blocks. But again, that whole timeline is subject to change. Myself and some folks from Resolve are going to be on board throughout the Easter holiday to start dewatering the 500,000 gallons of water that we put in the forward part of the ship. Once we're on the blocks, we don't need it anymore, and it's actually going to be complicating the painting process to have that water on there because it will sweat. Condensation will cause it to sweat through the hull, which will then make the paint not adhere. And literally the whole purpose we're doing this, the whole reason why we're spending $10 million to dry dock the ship, is to put a fresh coat of paint on the bottom to preserve the steel for another 30 years until we can do this again.
Now this live stream is unlikely to break my live dry dock time record because we're at 1 minute 38.5. So unless we like double this, just sitting out here on the outside the dry dock. But yeah, so if someone said Fox 29 is currently broadcasting from that helicam we can see floating around. So if anyone's watching that channel and you're looking at turret 3 now, you can see three little figures. Hello, we're all clustered around the guns. We're just kind of swinging back and forth a little bit here at the moment. And that dry dock looks pretty close to full.
Yeah. Gilliland being here on our starboard side is kind of complicating the navigation of the ship. They don't want us to get too close and endanger that vessel. So they're kind of working us in to the side as opposed to bringing us straight on to the dry dock, which would cause us to basically scrape down our starboard side down their port side.
Tugs are really going at it at the moment to keep us AV level, because we are now pretty much broadside onto the river current. So if they don't keep us in roughly station keeping, we'll just start to drift down the river, probably bow first, which is not something we really want to be doing.
Oh, and if you look over here at the wake of this tugboat, you can see all the chop that they're spitting up. Look at how brown it is. They're getting silt and mud from the river bottom. They're causing so much turbulence in the water there. So that's another thing that of course concerns us, is the depth of the river there. That's why we're waiting for a relatively high tide to get over the sill. Back here, protected between these piers, between these large Navy ships, it allows the silt to start to build up.
We may have to end the live stream at some point in the near future because the poor old phone is dying. It has minimal charge left, but once it's recharged, we will be back.
We're going to hold on to it for a little while longer. I think we probably have the better part of an hour left on that battery, so we're going to hold on to it. We might cut the audio for a little while and go to a microphone-free system just so we can charge. But we will give you commentary as we go. Right now we're sort of in a holding pattern, waiting for the tides and getting lined up. So we're going to swap back to our regular microphone here, guys. If you can still hear us, let us know. But it's probably a little bit fuzzier now. We're going to try and be particularly loud. We're also still in a flight pattern. Oops, almost cable.
My time is around 4 o'clock today, but they were talking about going in at 2. They thought that would be close enough.
Okay, so since our audio actually isn't as bad as we thought, we are going to try and continue our commentary best we can. We are still waiting to come in. Yeah, Ryan is participating in this live chat throughout the day. We've also got Drac here as well. Right now, we are... For those of you who haven't heard, we haven't mentioned it in a while, we will be doing Drydock tours. If you want to get underneath the ship, don't you worry, you can do it. Tickets are available at battleshipnewjersey.org. There's only 15 days where you can possibly get underneath the ship, so get your tickets while you can. First tour is April 6th. I know that the first tour has already sold out, but there's a few tours left later in the day. So definitely come by. For the person with artifacts, while we love to see them, while we're in Drydock, is a little bit difficult for us to look at them. It's not an ideal environment for them. But if you send us an email at education@battleshipnewjersey.org or go to our website, find literally anyone's email address, we'd love to talk to you about what you have. Drydock's just not a great environment for us. As a recap on our work, we're mostly doing what we like to call a shave and a haircut. We are going to repaint the hull, check all of the through-hole openings for things like bringing in water for the boilers and the propellers, make sure everything is secure, and check our cathodic protection. That is how we protect ourselves from, say, electrical currents in the water. So that system will get replaced as well. So all told, it should be about 60 days, and then we are back to Camden, New Jersey. If you haven't been on board to see the museum, you can get underneath the ship in Drydock, but if you want to get on board, you got to wait till we reopen in the summer. We're hoping to reopen early June, give or take.
Yeah, those of you debating the bow, that's of the ship to the right, that's USS Vela Gulf CG-72. Ticonderoga with 2 single 5-inch guns, one in each end.
That is not a Dutch flag. It's just weird stripes.
We currently have the helicopter, which apparently is live streaming, and we also have airliners coming overhead, and the tugs going, so there's a bit of warning.
The good news is, so we finished our ballasting project up day before yesterday, and things went well. We brought on about 500,000 gallons of water in the bow of the ship. We're looking at the stern right now, but on the bow to bring it down so it's a little bit closer to level with the stern. As we mentioned in our previous ballasting video, we did have an amount of leaks moving from tank to tank, but the good news is it pretty much floated into tanks that we were already going to fill. So it wasn't a major issue. We got a couple of pinhole leaks in some places, but all things that are very manageable, less than the water intrusion that we get when it rains. So nothing major there, and we will start dewatering the ship as soon as we can. My goal is to start on Friday, assuming that this whole evolution goes to plan. We will start dewatering Friday. Yeah, so what you can see, those people on our ship are mostly our line handlers. They're waiting for us to pull into the dock so they can match up with the people on the pier. You can't really see the people on the pier, but there are yard workers there waiting for us to start hauling lines to get us into position. I want to give a special shout out to our line handlers from North Star. We've had some of them on board all week ballasting, and we lost some of our ballasting guys to go down and help with the operations with the bridge in Baltimore. So we're thinking about them today, making sure everyone's staying safe. So we're very happy to have had North Star and Resolve on board the last few days for ballasting. I gotta say, they were really great. I was very impressed. They can move a lot of water very quickly, and they all seem particularly enthusiastic about this project. And
about the bump.
We're gonna get a bump here from this tugboat. You can see it on the right side of your screen. They're gonna help push us over to get us lined up.
Coming in hot.
She's coming in hot indeed. And can we feel it? Are we gonna feel it? Oh, she's so gentle.
Now that's some fine ship.
That is some fine ship keeping. I'm sure this is the point that our tug captain starts sweating a little bit. This is one of the hardest parts of this entire project, just getting us in here.
Got another helicopter showed up.
Oh yeah. We'll add some more noise to this live stream.
There.
Our tugs today have been from McAllister. They have been absolutely wonderful through this whole project. We haven't had any issues. And there are a lot of people outside the gate watching. We particularly I love, especially as the education person here, how many people have tuned in, how many people have watched from the shore, watched from our pier back in the day. It's great to see everybody participating in this.
Someone asked if the cathodic protection zincs are going to be sold off.
Yes.
Yes, so yeah, if you want a lump of zinc, what would the world be without zinc? Could be for the reference. Yes, you can buy some zinc that has been underwater in the Delaware for a while.
For reference, we're going to be replacing the zinc anodes with aluminum. That is more appropriate for our freshwater environment, so we will continue to do cathodic protection just in a slightly different way, more appropriate for our environment.
Apparently there's also folks on the rooftops. People are watching from
Oh, there are!
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Hello.
cool!
Hello, rooftop people.
You can't really see them in this stream, but if you look
yeah?
really, really closely on top of that white building on the right-hand side, you will see just a hint of an outline of maybe some people up there.
We're heading in by the looks of it.
It looks like we are heading in. This is one of the more difficult maneuvers, especially with a ship of this size and how tight of a squeeze it is. For reference, our ship is 887 feet long and 7 inches. It's an important 7 inches that makes us bigger than our sisters. We shall never let them forget that. With a 108-foot beam, so we are Panamax. And this dry dock in particular was reinforced, a little bit expanded for us back when we were first being built. So we like to think of this as our birthplace, being here at the Philadelphia Navy Yard. We were not built in this dry dock, we were completed in this dry dock, but this is our 4th time in. And it looks like we are just, we are so close.
So they're going to hold us to pull the blue linacles. Look at how close we are to Gilliland here on the starboard side.
Oh yeah. We are very close to Gilliland here, which means that our tugboats are working extra hard to make sure that we don't get too close to her.
It is surprisingly chilly here. For those of you who are unaware, pretty much everyone who's watching us is wearing at least a hoodie, and we're all trussed up. For those of you who are watching the Fox 29 live stream, I'm the white one, the bright whitish blue jacket. Ryan is in camouflage, so you can't actually see him, and so's Libby.
See, but I'm actually in navy camouflage. I'm in gray. I blend in with the ship. You're trying to blend in with the army? Of course, what you might actually be able to see instead is on the ship you'll see a bunch of little red dots moving around. That's everybody in their life jackets. That's how you know that there's a person there. So look for the life jackets. That's easier to spot. And you're right, it is absolutely a tight squeeze. Not quite as tight as us going through the Panama Canal. If you haven't seen footage of us going through the canal, watch it. It's great. You'll find it all over our YouTube channel. We have a particularly viral short of us going through the Panama Canal. It is a tight squeeze. This, we've got a little bit more space to work with here, but it's still tight.
And we cannot say enough positive things about the folks from McAllister Tugs who are squeezing us in here. It is a tight fit, and Gilliland being off our starboard side, less than a stone's throw away. If we were age of sail, I'd say that's about quarter pistol shot range.
How many curators would you say it is?
4, no more than 5 curators away. So they are doing some tremendous ship handling. They've been incredibly professional throughout this whole process. We've had them very involved because we can't do it without them. Obviously, none of us here at the museum have the expertise that they have, and they're bringing their A game today.
All told, throughout this entire project, the vast majority of the work that's happening are from folks who are not at the museum itself. McAllister, Resolve, North Star. We've got so many great contractors helping us out through this project. And of course, Philly Ship Repair. The vast majority of Philly Ship Repair's work starts now, as we're about to cross the sill. What a moment. They just tossed the line.
Our first heaving line just went over. We're passing the first line from the Battleship to the Drydock, and then soon they're going to be craning on that blue line that's going to be what hauls us in.
With the first line toss, traditionally this is where we would shift colors. With this first line, we are not going to shift colors just yet. We have our giant, it's what, a 40-foot flag that we just acquired, so we're going to keep our giant ensign up until we're fully in the dry dock, just because it looks so nice. But this is traditionally when we would do that. I can see that it also, here in our fantail where we're looking at where we would normally raise the ensign now that we have tied up or have a line ashore, is a little crowded. So yet another good reason not to shift colors on our end just yet.
And we have now 2 lines over. Our aftmost, both port and starboard lines, are now being handled by the folks from the dry dock. So they're going to start to take control of the ship as we come in, and the tugboats are going to start to back off as the ship goes over the sill.
Well, they've got to, because McAllister Responder is about to hit the quayside if she's not too careful.
There is no amount of butter that's going to allow them to squeeze into this dock alongside of us.
I don't think you'd get a rescale model tug in at the moment beside us.
For those of you asking, we would love to be able to fire the guns, but now is just not a safe place to do it. There's far too many people, far too close to us, far too many ships. We do fire the guns all the time around here. We did it on our way down on last Wednesday, or Thursday, but not today, unfortunately. We're just keeping everything as safe as we can.
Responders backing off.
You see how tight that was to getting out of there?
Yeah. There goes
That's Responder.
Responder. We just can't say enough good things about our tugboats and the amount of work that they do. And Joe Benton. And of course Joe Benton. Joe Benton's in charge of the whole operation.
Oh, here comes the crane.
Here comes the crane.
Crane is bringing on the capstan tug. I think Responder's probably going to go around to our bow to push the bow round, because we are at a little bit of an angle at the moment.
So the capstan is actually on the far end of the dry dock there on the other side of the road. Rumor has it we've got a photographer on site out there taking pictures of some of it. She sent me some earlier. You might find some of it on our social media already, otherwise it'll show up a little bit later. Everyone's watching her come in, but that's where the capstan is.
front and center on the screen, you can see we've just taken aboard that blue line. The crane is lowering it down. The line handlers are getting it secured.
Our line handlers today come to us from North Star. I think entirely all of our line handlers are North Star guys.
North Star River Services.
North Star River Services. And they, again, helped with our ballasting efforts. So they've been with us since the last move. And they rock. They're so great. I've been watching them over 4 days haul giant hoses down to some pretty awful places to get that ballasting work done. So I'm impressed. I can't wait to see them. They'll be back again to help with our dewatering efforts starting as early as Friday. We will be working on all of the through-hole openings in the underwater hull during this project. So that includes the propeller shafts as well as the boxes around the other through-hole openings for things like sea chests and things like that. We're going to take a look and make sure that they're all watertight. If they are not, there will be repair work. We don't expect to have too many issues with that.
The crane's moving
There's
back.
the crane.
That's dropped off the line. So the blue line is currently slack. They haven't started hauling in yet.
So while the ship is in Philly here in Drydock, I'm going to let you know that our normal home port of Camden is mere minutes away, just on the other side of the Walton and the Ben Franklin bridges. So it's actually very close to where we came from. All told, we've moved less than 6 miles. So no, we will not be living on the ship. Yes, we will go home at the end of the day. Though, at the very least, Ryan is coming off of, I think this might be your 7th 12-hour day in a row. Something like that. It's been a long week to get us to this point. So we're very happy to be here. We got a long day ahead of us still. Get us into this dry dock, and then they'll start draining a little bit out. Don't expect to see the bottom of the ship today, but we're hoping that we'll be able to show you a little bit tomorrow. And then if all goes to plan, Friday morning, we'll get to show you her underside. If you can hear the beeping, that's that large crane backing up, or I don't know what ways backwards and what ways forward. But it is moving away from us.
We are well, our stern is now well over the line. We are now partially inside the dry dock.
The deepest part of the ship has crossed the sill and we did not hit it, so we are in good shape. The rest of this evolution is going to go just fine. It looks like we're throwing heaving lines to get the next couple of lines off the second stern lines on each the port and starboard side, and the tugboats are starting to straighten the ship up parallel to Gilliland as we line up here on the dry dock for our final approach. The
Just as we look good.
Responder has shifted around to the bow, so that's why we're starting to straighten up.
And we just got a report from our tug captain, Joe, who says that things are looking really good. And as long as he's got a smile on his face, then I feel pretty good about all this. Someone asked if we're going to be live streaming our dry docking. We will be videoing the dry docking process from end to end, don't you worry. We will be doing some live streaming. A lot of it makes more sense showing you a little bit after as opposed to while it's happening live. So we'll go back to our usual every night, Monday to Friday, 7 o'clock on this channel, mostly. But if there's any special moments, we'll probably live stream them too. The tent frames on the bow are for a tent that we put up there. It's great for hosting events. If you'd like to host your event on the Battleship, you can.
And this is also the stern, because we're going in stern
Yes,
first.
we're going in stern first.
And if you like a little bit of a laugh, the aftmost dry dock block that's now underwater has a smiley face on it, so it's very happy.
If you go to the Battleship's Facebook page, you can see a picture of that smiley face. We posted it up there this morning, so that way you can get the chance to see it. Our group of us has been, we started about 6:15 this morning, arriving at the dry dock to take a look at the blocks before coming over to the ship in Paulsboro and then now riding her in. So we have been at it for a while. The dry dock was still dry when we arrived. Tug's backing out.
Reed McAllister's heading off.
And it moves.
With a will.
And there was not a lot of clearance there between the seawall here, the Battleship, the other tug, and Reed McAllister that just backed out. So that is 2 tugs now that have stepped off as we slide over the sill.
We do still have one tugboat on the side here that's getting closer to the dry dock wall.
There's another one out.
And another one aft. So it seems that they're mostly shifting their position, keeping us squared up where we need to be.
We're centering up now.
That capstan line's gone, well, it's not taut, but it's under tension.
That's true. You might be able to see here. There is, no, you can't quite see it from this angle, but there is a blue line keeping us tied almost to that white building at the far end down there. So our keel blocks are concrete at the base with wood on top. It's just cribbing, right? It's just whatever wood. I can't tell you what they're made out of. They're just made out of whatever they had. It's just going to soften the blow when we land on them. Some of them have additional steel as additional supports for our heaviest spots. So those are most of the blocks at the far end there where our stern's going to go.
Tune in early next week after the Easter weekend and we'll show you, we'll have a video about the blocking plan for the ship. And you'll be able to see her sitting on the blocks and we'll tell you what they're made out of.
So we have crossed the sill. For those of you asking, we are in the dry dock just partially. We have connected to the capstan at the far end, and we're kind of just getting situated, but we are slowly but surely still moving into this dry dock. Someone has suggested painting the ship green and yellow for Easter. I think that we Operation Petticoat it and paint her pink. What do you guys think?
Just paint her in one of the US Navy colours and let the light do it in about a day.
Oh. The plan still is we're going to paint the bottom red, which traditionally is red because that's the color of the anti-fouling paint. We're not using anti-fouling paint because we don't need it for our particular arrangement, but she is going to be in her traditional colors.
Our plan is to paint with 3 different coats. Each coat is going to be a different color so that you can tell as the paint gets worn away how many coats have been affected and if we still have paint on the bottom of the ship. The outer color, of course, will be red like traditionally, but that's going to help us as we send down dive surveys over the next 3 decades to see how well the coatings are holding up. They will be able to tell based on the colors how much paint's still on the ship.
Ryan's not going to do the painting. Our folks here at Philly Ship Repair are going to do all that work. Yet another great company we're excited to be working with for this project. And can we say once again how great McAllister Tug is?
I can't believe they've squeezed us in here with Gilliland on one side and just how narrow this dry dock is compared to our width.
And I gotta say, we've been having basically weekly meetings about this project for the better part of a year now. And our tug captain has been at every single one of those meetings. And we've been watching him get more and more stressed about this project. So I'm hoping that he finally gets some sleep tonight.
Capstan line's under tension now, full under tension now. It's raising out the water.
And we got another tugboat departing.
Disconnect lines over here.
Disconnecting lines on this side. We're gonna walk over here.
There she goes.
Classic ship form, guys. We got duck on a cleat. So we can say goodbye to the Beverly here.
Beverly has provided most of the propulsive power for New Jersey on her tows, both the one from Camden to Paulsboro and now the one from Paulsboro to here. And now that she is disconnected, she's doing the same job as the other tugboats and just helping push us from the port side to starboard to line us up parallel with the dry dock.
Beverly also has a special place in my heart today because they have a few special guests on board. They have a couple of our volunteers with them. If you'd like to volunteer on the Battleship, send an email to volunteers@battleshipnewjersey.org. We have a few projects our volunteers can work on back at our pier while we're in dry dock, and then you can come back on the ship as a volunteer in the summer. Our volunteers do great work. They help keep this ship painted and beautiful.
It's our Wednesday crew.
That is our Wednesday crew. One of the guys on board there is Dave Boone. We say extra hi to Dave Boone. He is our artist for the ship, and he makes sure that all the ship's sailor art's maintained, which is a really cool job. As you can see, our camera is just about to pass the sill here, so the camera is just about to be in the dry dock itself. We're getting very, very close, though we still have a whole lot of dry dock left to pull in. We're all the way at the stern back here on top of turret number 3. So the slipways that we were built on is to the left of the camera, on the other side of that building there. We don't have a good view of it from where we are. If you rewind the live stream, you can find it. We did pass by it. The slipways isn't there. It's now a parking lot. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
You probably can't hear it at the moment, but the air is actually full of the low-pitched creaking of the various lines that are being strung as they're keeping us on the straight and level.
I want to give a special shout out to all of the yard workers here. We've had the chance to meet a few of them so far in this project, and it seems like they, just like the McAllister guys, the guys from Resolve, North Star, are really excited about this project. And I think that's my favorite thing, is that everyone is just so excited to do this. I see more than one person taking pictures out there, and you know what? I'm pretty sure that off on my right-hand side, I spot my brother as he is tying up lines down there. So, excellent.
That's the third line going over the port side.
As a reminder, folks, we're probably not going to have much to show you of the underside of the ship today. They're going to drain some of the water out, but we're not going to be able to get under the ship today. Most of the draining will be done tomorrow. We'll get you a sneak peek tomorrow, and then expect Friday to really be getting underneath. As a reminder, since it sounds like Fox 29 is showing the capstan right now, there's a capstan at the far end of the dry dock we're currently connected to. It's going to be help pulling us in. The ship itself has capstans, but not quite useful for this project. We do have a capstan right here on the fantail that's actually not so far underneath us. You can see the little gray shack on our deck back here. It's just on the other side of that shack. And interestingly enough, that capstan does still work. It's actually a great story how we figured out it works. We were painting around it, and someone is literally sitting on what looks like a table. The capstan looks like a table, doing some work, and someone says, I wonder what this button does, and it starts to spin while she was sitting on it. And that's how we found out that it still works. It's electric. But our electro-hydraulic main capstans up on the bow that work with our anchors also works, but that's courtesy of our volunteers. We want to give a special shout out to Rich and Tony and Craig and Hal. Hal worked on that too. I bet Hal's even tuning in today. And a bunch of other volunteers who helped get that project going. We might get the chance to use our capstan for the way back when we pull into the pier. So they spent a lot of work getting that up and running so that way we could do that. One of the things that is really cool to watch that you might be able to see on your screen, but it's pretty small, is the workers pulling these lines. Pretty much what they do is they have the line in hand, they get it to a bit, they get that tight, and as the ship, as they pull it in, they just shift from bit to bit to bit, and they'll get more and more lines and more workers happening. So the further in we get, the more of them jump in to start hauling lines. And they're doing that both on the port and the starboard side. We're closer to the starboard side right now, but they've got them, or we're closer to the port side right now. But they got them on both sides. The nickname of the ship is the Black Dragon. I can't think of any paintings on the ship of an actual dragon, though.
We just remembered where one was. It is in the shaft alley for a number 2 propeller shaft on like a desk. And that is a painting from the 80s, but it is the only known depiction of a dragon on this battleship.
She picked up that nickname during World War II when she was painted a very, very dark blue. So the only time that you'd see her at night is when she's breathing her fire, which is a great way for a nickname. Unfortunately, that slipway really is just a parking lot, so there's not all that much left to see there. So we haven't really been able to show you much other than it's a parking lot.
Turret 3 is currently crossing the sill, which means 1/3 of the battleship is now in the dry dock.
And our heaviest part.
And most importantly, our heaviest and deepest part is now over the sill, with the tide still rising for another 2 hours. So a lot of what gave me screaming night terrors for the last week has now passed. Tonight, hopefully, I will not wake my poor beagle up with a startle in the middle of the night. He does get very grumpy when I do that. He always snorts at me when I wake him up like that.
So next up for us in this project, once we actually get in, they will get us settled a little bit and then pull the caisson on once the tides cooperate with us. The caisson is functionally, it's the door at the end. You close the door so that way you can drain the water out. We will start draining some of the water out tonight. Most of it will come out tomorrow. We're gonna get down to about 9 feet tonight is the intended plan, which means that we'll be able to figure out whether we're situated on the blocks or not tonight. We just won't be able to see so much. And then we should be high and dry and ready to see under the ship by Friday is the plan, and we'll show you some of that. And there are not any divers in the water just yet. It's a little too early for that, but there will be divers in the water when we get a little bit closer. Then once she's fully high and dry, work begins. We're gonna start dewatering the ship from the ballast water that we brought in to weigh down the bow. I am particularly eager to get the ballast water off the ship. Rule number 1 for museum ships especially is keep the water on the outside. And while bringing all that water in is good for the long-term preservation of the ship because it means we get to go into dry dock, it sure was a little scary for me bringing all that water on.
Yeah, 18 years I've worked in this field, historic ship preservation, and for 18 years I've done everything I can to keep water off of the ship. So having 5 days of pumping 500,000 gallons, 2,000 tons of water into my ship was really counterintuitive. I did not love it at all, and I'm looking very much forward to pumping it off.
Once the ship is deballasted, or probably even before they finished dewatering the ship, they're going to start. We'll do our inspection. We'll make sure that everything looks the way that we hope it does. And then they'll pressure wash the ship. She'll get her series of coatings, and we'll start doing inspections. Yeah, we got an ooh.
Yeah, so really cool. In a couple of days, we'll probably show you this in real time. But they're going to use a new technology to blast the growth and the paint off of the ship. It's essentially sandpaper Roombas.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, this company, I can't remember their name. We will totally retcon this in a future video and tell you their name and what they're doing. But they bid very competitively for this project to show off the proof of concept of their new product, and it's essentially a Roomba that's going to drive along the side of the hull of the ship, blasting off the growth and the paint. And I'm super excited to see that. I may be looking into where I can get giant googly eyes to put on them.
So we've had some requests to be able to show the capstan. So the capstan is actually over by that building that you see on the, like right in the center of the screen there, the white building. So we can't show you the capstan, it's a little too far away. I have heard rumor that Fox 29 has a decent view of it, but we do not. So apologies on that one, we just can't see it from where we are.
They're live? Are they live on TV?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now that we have, someone has asked why we do not have a flag flying. We have our flag flying amidships right now as if we were underway. Technically, with lines tied up, we should have shifted colors back here to the fantail, but with all the people line handling back here, we have elected not to do that just yet, just to keep minimum people in the way of the line handlers as we can. But we will shift colors back to the fantail here once we deem it safe to do so. Plus, we got a giant 40-foot American flag flying. Let's keep it flying as long as we can in my book. Parking for Drydock tours is free. Yes. So that's an excellent perk, and you get to keep your hard hat. Drydock tours are available at battleshipnewjersey.org. We're offering tours almost every Saturday and Sunday through April and May. We have one blackout date, unfortunately, due to a thing in the city. But
Broad Street Run.
the Broad Street Run, you can thank the Broad Street Run for blocking out that date for us, Cinco de Mayo. But otherwise, every Saturday and Sunday in April and May. So it's only 15 dates. Get your tour tickets while you can. I would be surprised if sometime in the next several decades that there is another opportunity to get underneath an Iowa-class battleship. We are so grateful to Philly Ship Repair for allowing us to do Drydock tours. It is unusual. Their normal ships don't do that. And a special shout out to Battleship Texas. They did Drydock tour tickets first and really set the precedent that it is doable.
Pan over to this railing and structure here.
We can't show you.
Oh, you can't.
Yep.
Right. Right. Pump house.
Yeah. So you can sort of see on the right hand side of the screen, just a little bit left of the sort of the gray tops, these little buildings here, is the pump house. We got a sneak look in there prior to these tours starting, or starting our tours. We got to sort of walk through and they showed us the pump house. They have some massive motors in there. We will hopefully get the chance to show you those photos in a future video. We sort of talk about how this project works and how the Drydock itself works. Unfortunately, the pump house is not on our tours. It's a little dangerous to get down there, so not practical for tours, but we'll show you all the pictures that we can. So of the Iowa-class battleships that have been most recently Drydocked, Missouri is last. She was Drydocked in 2009, so she is probably not the next to go in, but maybe not. She has a Drydock very conveniently located next to her and has had some damage in the past to her bow, so for all we know, she could be next. Iowa currently has no specific plans to do so. They don't have a Drydock that they can go into on the West Coast, so they do not have any plans. Wisconsin, in theory, could be next up, but I haven't heard any concrete plans from them either. Drydocking a battleship like this requires years and years and years of work. We have been talking about it for the 5 years I've been here and beyond that of something that we needed to do. But it's only been about 9 months since we really had a concrete idea that this was really going to happen. So special shout out to the state of New Jersey for their support of this project. If you haven't heard, Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State. And the Historic Trust, who also is a major supporter of this project. And again, all of our lovely contractors. We've mostly, McAllister Tug is mostly behind us now. They're a little outside of our frame. But they have been awesome all day and through the last move getting us through this. And the North Star guys who are our line handlers on board who help with ballasting, as well as the Resolve guys who help with ballasting. And of course our lovely friends here at Philly Ship that I hope that you guys are going to get real up close and personal with over the course of the next roughly 60 days.
Still have one tug that's alongside us pushing.
Perfect. Slightly shift, get a nice view right down the middle here, guys. So there is a line pulling us into the capstan at the far side, which you can't really see from this angle. It's a fairly thin line. It wouldn't feel so thin if it was in your hands, but in the grand scheme of things with our 900-foot battleship, it does not actually seem that thick. So it's a little hard to see on camera, but that's what's pulling us in. We plan on being on the ship for quite a while still today. As you can see, we're not fully in the Drydock yet. We got a ways to go. We're about at the aft 5-inch gun mounts crossing over the sill now. So we still got a whole lot of ship. And then they will start draining some of the water out tonight. I would say we're not quite halfway there. We're gonna get back out of dry dock functionally the same way that we got in. The tugboats are gonna do all the work, with of course some help from the line handlers ashore. So this dry dock, I saw markings on the wall this morning that's about 50 feet deep. Today we've got a draft of around 30 feet, almost the same from the bow to the stern after we've done this ballasting. So we do still have decent amount of clearance in here. The water doesn't go fully up to the, all the way up the side, so there's not quite 50 feet of water in there right now, but we only need 30 feet, so there is absolutely plenty to get us in. The blocks themselves are about 5 feet tall or so. So if you're short enough, it's easy enough to walk underneath them. Some of you taller folks might have to duck a little bit. Somebody's mentioned that if you go on Google Earth, you can see the capstan by the buildings, get a good view of it. So check that out. Yeah, we're in a flight path here, so every time a plane flies over on the way to the airport, we get a little bit extra noise. The tent structure is not a permanent thing. Thus, it doesn't even have a tent on it right now. It can be removed from the ship if need be. So it's just there for right now. We're going to do some video that we can of the removal of the water. Expect to not see that today though. You'll see a little bit of it in this live stream, but it's kind of like pulling the giant cork out of the bottom of a swimming pool, except the swimming pool is the size of a battleship. It goes slowly. So we'll show you some of that as we can, but we'll probably not live stream it just because of the amount of time that it will take. As a reminder, we're up here on the top of turret 3, and there are no power outlets on top of turret 3. So due to that, we have a few technological limitations here. So we will not be live streaming for the next 45 hours while they drain the water out. I think one of the things that I like most about seeing what's happening here right now is that really most of the work is being done exactly the same way that it would have been done in 1943. You know, it's being done by manpower, and yeah, there's a motorized capstan, but just as they would have done in 43, it really hasn't changed. It's manpower. It's a whole lot of people standing along the sides of the dry dock here, hauling lines. Their good line work is what's doing all the work.
I bet you the capstan dates back to then. I know that the pumps in the dry dock date back to then. The dry dock itself dates back to the early 20s. All of this equipment that we're using today is much the same as it would have been over 80 years ago when we first came to this dry dock.
No, we're not really covering up our deck for this project because we're not really doing any work above the waterline, and all of the deck work is above the waterline, so it's nice and safe. We're not worried about it for this project. For the few things where we're bringing things onto the ship, say for ballasting, we put down plywood to cover it so that way we can protect our deck. We even have our carpenter joining us near our camera today. They did amazing work. Do you want to say hi to the crowd and tell them about your beautiful deck project?
Hi everyone, I'm Jay. That guy.
Come stand behind us.
Come tell us about the project. Anything you want to say?
It's been an awesome project. They hired me to help replace the teak deck, and it's been a great ride.
For how many years now?
Just started my 5th year here, which is amazing. We have a little bit left to go on the main deck. The forward brow and quarterdeck area we have to finish. Hopefully we'll be done that on the return trip.
That'll have been almost 45,000 square feet of deck that's been hand ripped, hand cut, hand laid.
Everything, yes. I believe it is 1 acre of teak.
1 acre of teak.
And what's great is the deck we took off the ship, you can buy a piece of it in our store at battleshipnewjersey.org. You can buy it as they took it off in whole pieces. You can buy it in pens. You can buy it in magnets. You can buy a little jar of it in scraps.
Buy some bolts and some. What else are we selling?
I think there is some press that we
Right, yeah.
just ground down.
There's
So if
some-
you guys,
We haven't
Funneled
bottled it
through
yet,
that
but it's
yet,
going to
yeah.
go into stores soon.
that's
There's
awesome.
little pieces of metal too, which is great. And every purchase from that project, or every purchase of the teak, goes right back into supporting the teak deck project and the Drydock project. And now we have this beautiful deck back here. You get a good view of that from this camera of the hard work they've been up to. You guys finished this section what, 3 years ago now? This was the first section you did,
Right after
Right before
COVID.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
the proms here.
right? We've had
And
quite a few
reveals
good prompts
the,
back here.
Prompts, yeah. We're making good. We're
Making
moving
really
now.
good progress.
Yeah.
It is only 2:15, and officially we weren't supposed to cross the sill till 2. I think we might have got in early, I'm not sure. But we're making great time.
About half of the ship has crossed the sill at this point, so we're getting there.
Looks like Beverly's on her way back to the dock. That's one of our tugboats that's been doing a whole lot of work. Today, we appreciate all their work and the work from the guys on McAllister. And no, Under Siege was not filmed on New Jersey. While the film itself is set on Missouri, they filmed it mostly on Alabama and in sound stages. Both Missouri and Alabama are museum ships. Go visit them. They'd love to see you too. Alabama is actually not even the same class of ship. She's one before us. She looks a lot similar to us. I think she's just a little stubbier. She's just missing a little bit on the bow. But otherwise looks a lot like us. So thus made a good set for that movie. But was not actually Missouri. I think when they made that movie, Missouri was still in service, right? So they got some footage of her actually underway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's B-roll of Missouri underway, but then whenever they cut to actually actors on a ship, it's Alabama.
I must say though, some of the most iconic scenes in that movie where they're like keeping all the guys in the forecastle or whatever, there is no space that looks like that at all.
There's no giant reefer like that to lock Chief Ryback in.
People always ask when they come aboard, those are the spaces they want to see, and they're always a little disappointed that I can't show them to them because they don't exist. Turret 2 is now crossing the sill, says somebody watching from another angle. I'm not sure whether they're watching from the helicopters in the sky or somebody on land or on one of these buildings. It sounds like Turret 2 is just crossing now.
That means about 2/3 of the ship is in the dry dock.
To the person in Montgomery County, if you live less than 23 miles away, the answer is yes.
From our home in Camden, that pretty much means King of Prussia, Delaware, Trenton. That's sort of our general circle. So I'll let you make a circle home. Is this our favorite 2/3 of the ship? Are you an aft man? Having spent the last 4 days deep in the bow of this ship, I feel like I have a strong preference for, her nose. I have been watching those tanks fill full of water as far as our ballasting efforts go, with a lot of the guys that you're seeing doing the line handling. And I'm really looking forward to taking the water back out. But I feel like I have a new appreciation for just how big those tanks really are now.
Yeah, some of the tanks that we were flooding have a capacity of 60,000 gallons, which is about 400 tons of water, about 1/5, 20% of what we needed to flood to get the bow down.
For those of you who have the top-down view, we are going in stern first. So if you're looking at it from above, it sounds like turret number 1 is crossing the sill right now, according to those of you reporting in. Any other naval movies worth watching? So first and foremost, I rewatched Greyhound the other day. I thought that was fantastic.
We watched it too.
Just rewatched it too. We felt like we needed an authentic experience. I, of course, as far as Navy movies go, love The Hunt for Red October. Totally. Oh, and we make an appearance in the book, so it's tangentially related to us, even if it is a submarine movie.
Crimson Tide.
Crimson
Tide's
Tide.
a good one.
The Final Countdown.
The
That's
Final
a classic.
Countdown's my favorite movie of all time.
I thought your favorite movie, Ryan, was Battleship.
Oh, we don't speak
I'll
of
get around to
Battleship.
watching that one day.
If you ever spend the night on board the ship, we usually show a movie around lights out for those people who can't quite make it to bed at 10 o'clock. So we have two choices generally. We either do Sink the Bismarck or Operation Petticoats. Those are two movies I never want to see again. We've seen those a few times. Tora! Oh, that's a classic.
Down Periscope.
Down Periscope. I think I love Tora.
Ooh, Master and Commander, another good one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love Master and Commander.
Whoever put In Harm's Way on there, I love me some John Wayne movies. John Wayne, Kirk Douglas crossovers are right up there with my favorite. In Harm's Way, though, is probably one of the Duke's least good movies.
Oh, what did we just watch with the jacking gear?
Sand Pebbles!
Sand Pebbles! Sand Pebbles is also good. I like Sand Pebbles. So we're going to zoom out again, folks, to give you guys a little bit more perspective where we are. You can see that we are most of the way in now. The old Midway was good. I didn't hate the new Midway. People generally didn't give it as great reviews as the old one. I think they're just attached to it. I love the new Midway.
I think the new Midway would have been better if they spent more than half of the movie at the Battle of Midway instead of doing Pearl Harbor and Coral Sea and whatever Mandy Moore was doing.
There is that. So, Ryan and I recently took a road trip to New England. You might have seen some of our videos on it if you watch them elsewhere in the channel. We saw Nautilus, we saw Albacore, we saw Salem, we saw Slater. All great
Salem, Graf Spee.
Yeah. Well, so all great ships, we recommend you go see them, but when we did it, we put an audiobook on about Midway. And we spent like 12 hours and never got to the Battle of Midway because we decided that we wanted to listen to Shattered Sword. So I'm going to count that as a movie, even if it is just an audiobook. They're going to turn Shattered Sword into some sort of documentary. They've got to. I mean, it kind of is.
I mean, that's just, well, I guess it would be the movie Midway, but from the Japanese perspective.
Yeah, it might be better, though.
Which, the original Midway movie had a good show of that. The newer one was more one-sided. I feel like that was the key to the great war movies of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that they showed both sides of it. You know, like Gettysburg and the Battle of the Bulge and all of those great movies, Waterloo. You got both sides' perspectives.
Someone just asked, so they've made Band of Brothers, they did the Pacific, they did Masters of the Air. When are we going to get our Navy one? I'm hoping for it too. I, of course, would like one about my beloved J.J. Jocko Clark. J.J. Clark is captain of CV-10, the second Yorktown, XO on CV-5, the first Yorktown. He ends up as Admiral on New Jersey in 53, and no one appreciates him the way they should. I love Jocko. He's also the Navy's first Native American admiral. Turret 1 is crossing the sill now, according to somebody watching from up above.
Yeah, we're certainly starting to get close to the rear wall of the dry dock.
Almost there.
I think once we get fully in, guys, we will probably stop our live stream since most of the viewing from here is best done from somewhere else than on top of turret 3 here. So we're getting close to all the way in. Don't forget, we will be showing you the water draining out when we get there, which might be mostly tomorrow. We'll show you the underside of the ship, and you too can get under the ship in a dry dock tour. You go to battleshipnewjersey.org. Every dollar spent on dry dock tours goes right back into this project, keeping us preserved, so that way this great battleship is here for many years to come.
We've got some kids outside the fence here watching the ship come in. I remember one of the things that got me interested in naval history was August of 1998 when USS Constellation was being refloated in her dry dock near Fort McHenry. I was 8 years old, and my dad took me and my 6-year-old brother to watch the ship get refloated. And it's just amazing seeing other kids about that age here watching us go into dry dock. In 20 or 30 years, they're going to be standing right here where I am. And because of the work that we're going to be doing over the next 2 months, this ship is still going to be here.
So people ask me a lot how I got into museum ships or whatever, and I've always been a museum nerd, I've always been a history nerd, but the first museum ship I really remember visiting was Constellation. I came on Constellation on an 8th grade field trip, just like so many others do. And I specifically remember they made us get in line. We had to toe the line with the deck. And we probably did brace the yards and move the yard arms and turn the capstan and all of that, raise the imaginary anchors. And it just was amazing. I loved how hands-on it was and how great it was. And I went to work on Constellation at one point. Ryan worked on Constellation at one point. But
I worked on Constellation when Libby visited on her field trip. I just didn't have to do that tour, which is a good thing because those kids were talking through the whole thing.
We checked the pictures. We actually know who my tour guide was. So we got to see, like, it's so-and-so. It's our friend. So it's one of the really great things that we have the chance to see the next generation out here getting into museum ships. If you don't already work for a museum ship, which I'm sure most of you don't, go volunteer at one. There are museum ships all around the world, even in some places you wouldn't expect. There are cornfield submarines all across the United States, and they could definitely use your support, whether it's as a volunteer or donating. Even just sharing today's video helps get our word out to tell more people about the work that we're doing. And you know what? If you want a career in museum ships, it's out there for you too.
Yeah, all those people out there who say that you cannot make a living in history are completely wrong.
Yes, very wrong. That's why I'm here.
One of the things that I've loved most about being here is that we've, sometimes it's growing up, especially in the 90s before there was really internet, you were that one kid by yourself who got really into ships or history, whatever it was, and come work at a museum and you could be surrounded all day by people who are into ships, into history, into whatever it is that you think. We're getting very close to the end here. You can kind of see if we zoom way in that we are getting close to that building. That's a little bit too much zoom, I think. There we go, it's a little better.
Yeah, we're going to have to tell them to open their loading gate because we're about to back this battleship right in there.
The pace of advance is slowing slightly, which is probably just as well. For those of you interested, the first museum ship I remember going aboard was HMS Victory when I was 4. There was also an original series Star Trek exhibition in the dockyard for some reason I have yet to fathom. But there is a picture of 4-year-old me sitting on the bridge of the original Enterprise, or at least a good quality replica thereof.
Now, I remember I was about 4 when I first went on Taney and Constellation in Baltimore. I remember I was 6 when I got on my first battleship. That would have been Massachusetts up in Fall River. And I don't know about you, Drac, but I've been hooked ever since.
Yeah, pretty much. Once I saw Victory, I was pretty much hooked. I mean, it was a very rare sunny day in the UK, and back then she still had her full masts and rig set up, and she was in the what we now know to be ahistorical but still awesome looking bright yellow and black striping. Oh yeah, and the world's silliest lifted pickup is making their exit. I mean, whatever your thoughts on lifted pickups, everyone, this particular one has a extremely lifted front and a not lifted back, so it looks like it's permanently going up a 20-degree incline. I'm not entirely sure how he sees where he's going, but there you go. Yeah, Victory. Nowadays you can obviously still visit her in Portsmouth Historic Dockyard if you happen to be in the UK. She is not quite the same impressive sight because they've taken her masts down and covered her in scaffolding because they're in the middle of a very deep refit, which will hopefully preserve her for the next few decades.
And that's a key part of having a museum ship. You can't just have it permanently open. You have to close it or alter the tour route every now and again to do major yard periods. Victory is getting hers with scaffolding in place, and we're about to start ours.
We are getting very, very close to the end here, guys.
One of the helicopters. Oh no, I was going to say it's gone away. It's just gone further away.
Just a little drifted back. We can watch our line handlers here, and you can see that things are starting to slow down just a little bit as they have that final approach. So
yeah, a little bit of the tension's gone out of the capstan line there.
Yeah. Now it's about just making sure she stops in roughly the right place, and then they're going to spend the back half of today, maybe even some of tomorrow, making sure that we are in exactly the right spots. When we drop down on our blocks, we hit in the right spot. We want to make sure that our through-hole openings that we are here to inspect are not sitting on the blocks. So there's going to be a little bit of careful work to make sure that we land exactly where we want to. It's why we've been doing that ballasting work, to make sure we land on the blocks how we want to, so we don't damage the ship.
Those of you who were just asking that, yes, well, I would like to walk in the chamber that holds Mary Rose. Given that she is slightly under half a ship, I don't think I want to walk on Mary Rose. I think the curators there would probably kill me if I tried, but yeah, that's probably not entirely structurally sound. But I do know that you can, under limited circumstances, actually get into the preservation chamber and get right up close to her.
Texas was a little bit lighter, but Texas had so much more concerns as far as her move. So
Feels like it, if not entirely. We're real close.
we're definitely still moving a little bit,
Yeah.
but we're getting close to being in there.
Of course, once we're fully in, there's a lot less water in the dry dock than there was. We've displaced all of it.
Is Texas going back to where she came from? No, Texas was at San Jacinto before her dry dock. She is not going back there. She is slated for a new pier in Galveston, though the exact details of that are still coming together. She is out of dry dock for now, but it's just sitting at the pier near her dry dock for some extra work before she goes back in. Well, she might go back to the dry dock, I don't know about that. But before she goes to her final pier to open as a museum. She's not slated to open until 2025, 2026. We fortunately have significantly less work. We're not doing any real work on the inside of the ship except to make sure that the tanks and everything are safe for any hull work that needs to be done. We're not painting above the waterline. We don't have the major structural work that they had to do. So ours is a much smaller scale. If you can say $10 million is a small scale. Which is why we appreciate every dollar that you guys have donated today, in the past, for tour tickets, for materials.
Every dollar counts.
Every dollar counts. Oh, we are really slowing down now, guys. I expect to continue to see all over this YouTube channel all sorts of dry dock content today, tomorrow, for the next 60 days and beyond. And tune in on the Battleship's Facebook, Instagram, our Twitter, our TikTok, all over that for even more additional content. As we go along, we want to tell you all about everything that we're doing. And you don't forget, come out and see her in person. Where else can you get under an Iowa-class battleship? Can we put more of the Quad 40 Beauforts on the ship? We are so lucky we have one Quad 40 on the ship. While we had many of them during World War II, it's not appropriate to our current scheme. So the fact that we have one is a great display item, but we can't refit the whole ship with all of them. And would look kind of weird to have missiles in a full outfit of Quad 40s anyway.
There is a rather nice set of base pedestals for the Quad 40s up on the bow, now that the bow decking is done. If you want to go and see those.
It sounds like our bow has crossed the sill. So that's good to hear. It doesn't look like we're moving from the video because we're just moving very, very slowly now. It's a very precise move from here. We are pretty much in place, and they're just securing everything down to make sure that we're all set. Which means I think we might be ending our live stream now.
I think you need to step in front of the camera for a minute so everyone can see you.
Go say hi.
All of you.
I don't go in front of the camera for good reason.
Hello.
Hello. So say hi to our team for the weekend. Say hi, guys.
No, go.
Nope. And there is our CEO, Marshall Spivak, who has been Spivak, who has been with us for a large portion of this afternoon's cruise, and is running the show. We want to thank all of you guys again for joining us for this. Again, check us out for the rest of the channel, for the rest of our videos. We are going to show you so much. Ryan, you want to close us out?
Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support. I don't know if there's a link in the description below to donate, but go to our website, battleshipnewjersey.org/donate to support the dry docking project. And don't forget to get your tickets for dry dock tours. I'll see you in the coming weekends.
Bye.